All right, guys, welcome back. This is the first edition of the divisions. We're going to do the divisions. We're going to do Eastern Conference teams and Western Conference teams. Tonight, we're starting off with the Atlantic in the East and the Northwest Division in the West. And I have some incredible guests with me from the Unwrapped Sports Network. Before they introduce themselves, we got to pay some bills. So here we go. Don't forget to check out we have clothes, we have masks, we have pouches, we have it all at teespring.com/store/unwrapped. Guys, go check that out and go get you some Unwrapped sports gear. Also, if you like to gamble, mybookie.ag, use the code USN100 to double your first deposit. If you have sore, achy muscles, it's the wintertime, it's coming up. When you want to be an athlete and you're past your prime, go get you some CBD cream at rxhemp.com. Use the code rxhemp/US10 to get 10% off your order. Now that we've paid bills, let's get into this. This is going to be great, guys, because we all have our hearts on one team. We all might be fans of one team. And some of our teams made great moves. Some of them didn't. Some of our teams made so many moves that we can't keep up, i.e. the Oklahoma City Thunder. So we're gonna kick this off, and I'm gonna start with Aaron. Aaron, go ahead and introduce yourself. Shout out your social medias, your podcast, and all that good stuff.
What's going on, y'all? Aaron Washington here. I host the Business Casual Basketball Podcast on Thursday nights. My Twitter is A_A_RON25. BC Basketball 2 is my Twitter handle for the podcast. I'm glad to be here, guys. Really just looking forward to this conversation. And, I'm a Miami Heat fan here, so looking forward to what the Heat have in store for this season and just looking to keep things going, excited for the season, and appreciate the opportunity.
Nice. I wanted to start it off. I'm Caleb Conant. I'm a Laker fan, so we just beat the Heat. Just had to start that off there.
Hey, y'all can have that one. We'll be back.
Hey, that's right. You can catch me on Twitter at Caleb Conant 2. You can catch me on Instagram at @1CalebConant. I'm with the MCS Real Sports Podcast. We got Jules and Jim's podcast with my dad and I. And let's have some fun tonight, We got the Lakers in the building. Reigning champs. You know how we rolling tonight.
I hate this confidence.
Are we going down my way? Or are we going
We're going to go to your way, Jerome. All
right. My name is Jerome Knight. I'm a host of JKB Sports Podcast. You can follow my social. Twitter is JKB Sports with a Z. Pod. Instagram is JKB Sports. Huge Warriors fan. Pelicans fan. Love to talk ball. Good conversation. Look forward to talking to a lot of dope people. Let's go.
CJ James, host of the Garter Podcast. Cover multiple leagues, but I love, of course, NBA. It's one of the top leagues I cover. Knicks fan, got a lot to say, so hopefully things go well this season. And I'll switch it over to Andrew.
Andrew Williams at Andrew_WA on Twitter. I'm an assistant director with Unwrapped Sports. Just love talking hoops, man. I'm excited as long as Caleb. I'm also a Lakers fan, so we're fresh off the championship. We're still celebrating here. We won't get into the champs as much tonight, but, we're still repping. And another thing, we just traded JaVale McGee, so I'm here to be happy about that as well. So regardless of what you all say, JaVale's out of L.A. We're good. I'm just ready to talk hoops and be with you all, man.
And, of course, I am Nick Andre, writer of All Things Basketball, host of the Above the Rim podcast, and co-host of the new NCAA basketball podcast titled Creating Madness. Follow me on Twitter at _Nick Dormus. I'm an avid Warriors fan, and we're going to be back. Whether Clay's gone or not, we're going to be tough in the West Conference, so look out for us.
All right, and I'm your host. My co-host is Andrew, actually, and I'm your host, Amber Vickers. Follow me on Twitter at simplyme_AV. I have the Step Back Sister podcast that I just did today. I have the Thunder Coast to Coast podcast, and I'm live on Twitter. I have Ladies First live on Twitter on Thursday nights at 7 Central. Now, let's get it started with a team that a lot of people believe can go to the finals. They've been saying this for the past couple of years. So we're going to talk about the team in the Atlantic Division. We're going to start with the Atlantic Division. They're in the Western Conference. The Boston Celtics. Now, we know that Boston has been a great team for a little bit. Danny Ainge has compiled draft picks and they have drafted very, very well. Very well. They flipped Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett, essentially, in my opinion, into Jason Tatum, um, and also Jaylen Brown. So, guys, how we feel about Boston?
Well, no, they look good. They look good. You know, they can't really go down. There's nothing for them to disprove from. The rest of the East got good, but Boston, for the most part, they held pack. The only thing I don't like is Kemba's knee looks a little wonky.
Yeah.
I don't like how much time he looks like he's gonna have to take to recover. Time between games, he looks like he's gonna be a load management. So for anyone who does fantasy, I wouldn't go near Kemba. But for the most part, they're gonna be riding on Tatum. They're gonna be riding on Jaylen Brown. They got rid of Hayward, obviously, so look for Marcus Smart to continue stepping up. He had a pretty good playoff run when Hayward was out. So, I think Boston's going to still be just fine. Obviously, the rest of the East caught up, and that's what they're supposed to do, but I look for Boston to still be a top 3-4 team, depending how, COVID goes and injuries and people are going to be in and out the lineup. We know that. So I think seeding is not going to be that big of an issue. But, when it comes to time, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I said them to still be the workhorse for that team, and both going to be averaging maybe north of 25 each. It's going to be a really dynamic scoring duo. It could be what we thought Paul George and Kawhi was going to be, so look out for that.
Yeah, I think you can go, Aaron. Yeah.
Oh, cool, man. Appreciate it. So, when I look at the Celtics, I see more opportunity for those two wings that they really kind of put their future in, Brown and Tatum. I mean, it's going to be all hands on deck, of course, for them again. But as you mentioned, Jerome, I mean, Kemba being out is going to have an effect on that lineup. And I'm curious to see what that's going to mean for the rest of the roster. But those two guys specifically, not having Hayward there, it just means they're going to have to pick up more of the slack, which I think they're more than up to the task, as we saw in the bubble in the playoffs. And, they still have some weaknesses there on the back line. I don't think they did too much to address that. I mean, they got Tristan Thompson, which is nice. But, I mean, overall, they're going to be another solid team. And growth isn't linear. You can't just, see yourself going up another tier every single season. And they had a little bit of a setback with Gordon Hayward, but they're going to stay the course and they're going to be well coached and they're going to have some, great players and great talent go through there again. So I pegged them for having another great season, but I think the range of outcomes are a little bit like there's a wide range of like where they can end up as far as seeding, just because Kemba in and out and, there's some things going on in that lineup. So curious to see where they finish up, but anything could really happen, especially since they're in a competitive division and the conference has gotten a lot more competitive.
Yeah, the conference definitely gotten more competitive. I like the moves they made. You look at the size in the middle. That was definitely something that they struggled with against the Heat. You pick up a guy like Tristan Thompson, former champion, good guy, able to rebound the ball, good on the boards, which is exactly what you need. He could defend a little bit, solid on a pick and roll defense. So that's something that they need at that 5 position. They didn't really do too much at big man outside of Thompson. We got Daniel Tyson still there, able to knock down shots, kind of an energy guy. I like the draft pick that they got, Aaron Nesmith from Vanderbilt, big time shooter. He's also about 6'6", 6'7". So I look to see him in a lot of lineups, potentially maybe in some closing lineups for them. Still got Marcus Smart off the bench, or starting. He's a dog. He might start with Kemba being out with the injury. Jeff Teague was a good pickup as well, being that backup point guard. He's a veteran. He's been around for a very long time. Has a lot of playoff experience. So I think that was a good piece for them. But like Jerome and Aaron said, it's going to come down to Tatum and Brown. Tatum making that step, potentially being in an MVP conversation. He's going to have to continue to step up, be in that top 5. Got to be around that top 6, top 7 player in the game. If he could do that, the sky's the limit for the team. I think Brown has the potential as well. Tatum is 22, Brown is 24. So they're going to be around for a long time. I would still like to see them maybe towards before the trade deadline make a move to get a guy in the middle. But so far, that's like you guys said, they're going to be definitely in that top 6, top 7 range for sure.
I like what they did in the offseason, actually. I think there's a couple lineups that they have with Aaron Nesmith now, like you said, CJ. Now you could possibly have a lineup where you put Tristan Thompson at the 5 and put Jason Tatum at the 4 and play smaller and have Aaron Nesmith out there at the 3 with Jaylen and Marcus or Jeff Teague, whoever's running the point at that time. Like you guys said, I do worry about the point guard spot with Kemba being out and what's going to happen. But don't forget, the Celtics acquired a really big trade exception with that Gordon Hayward trade that gives them the space to take back a very large contract. They can use that, at some point in the season to take back a big contract. It wouldn't shock me to see if they, and I'm just throwing names out, if they took on an Andre Drummond or somebody like that, a guy that could play in the middle that's a good offensive rebounder. But for a second, Tristan Thompson, I think, is a really good signing for that team. He's a great rebounder. He doesn't need touches in the post. He's not a guy that you have to give it to. He can just offensive rebounding off the weak side can be excellent for them. You can play him, and he's going to play good defense and he's a good rebounder, good rim protector, stuff like that. Also, they have a couple of guys that are going to get better. Robert Williams there in the middle. Romeo Langford, who is going to continue to get better. Grant Williams from Tennessee is going to continue to get better. I think it pretty much comes down for the Celtics. It's dependent on how good Jason Tatum is. If he's elite, like MVP elite, they can be top 3 in the East, and have a shot at the finals. If he's a tier below that, then they're probably in that 5, 6, 7 range, and they would need a couple things to happen. But I do think they're in a good spot. I still think there's more moves to go, and we'll see what those look like. And I think they've got a real shot in the division, although it's a really tough division. They got a really good shot. And I'm looking forward to seeing the continued progress from Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, you guys pretty much said it all. I mean, for them to take that next step, they really gotta watch Brown and Tatum grow. They gotta take that next step. If Boston as a team could take that next step, Tatum and Brown have to take that next step in scoring, and I think they can. I mean, Brown, I have 100% confidence in Brown and Tatum that they can do it. But I don't know. I think they gotta they gotta work their way in. I mean, they're a little bit of a different team. I like the Teague signing. I like the Thompson signing. The young guys are gonna play more. I feel like we can see some more Carson Edwards. But they should be fine. I feel like they should be fine.
I'll just make one last point. I think with Kemba being out, I think Tatum should come up with the ball a little bit more, be kind of that playmaker. He has the size, he has the ability. So, with Kemba being injured, he's been in and out the lineup for, since he's been there. Look for Stevens to definitely put some trust in Tatum, kind of being that point forward, making plays, being able to score, especially with a guy like Thompson, great pick and roll guy. They could do some things. Like you guys said, tough division, but Tatum has to take that next step and be one of the best players in the NBA if they want to try the championship.
I've got a question for you all. Do you think now for the last, 2 of the last 3 years or something like that, the Celtics have made the Eastern Conference Finals and have conceivably been the favorite to win it at that point? I mean, you could argue that the Celtics were favored over the Heat, and a couple years ago they were favored over the Cavaliers, on that depleted Cavaliers team when it was just LeBron and that 2018 squad. Do you think now that it's more mentally them trying to get over the hump and get into the finals because they've been at the doorstep so many times? Do you think that's going to be a hurdle that those guys have to get over mentally to be able to progress to the next step?
100%.
I don't think it's that difficult. I don't think it's that yet. That is not the case yet. I feel like I think Miami just had more experience, and when it comes to Eric Spoelstra, I think he's as crazy as it sounds to say, I think he's an underrated coach. So I think that experience and that just kind of put that over the edge, and I think Jimmy just wasn't going to be denied. I think Tatum and Brown still have some time to go. Maybe if it's like, we're coming to year 5, year 6, and we're seeing other teams come and progress. Like, let's say a team like Charlotte, and this is just me throwing a team out. Let's say a team like Charlotte and LaMelo really, it becomes this player that I don't know but then some of us really think he could be. Gordon Hayward stays healthy and proves that he can stay healthy, and they blossom. Devontae Graham, they got some good young pieces in PJ Washington. Let's say a team like that or a team like Atlanta comes through, and all of a sudden they make some noise and they go on a run and they make the Eastern Conference Finals. Then I think you're looking at, okay, do they have what it takes to get over that hump and to get to the finals? Or, if it gets to that point, then maybe. But yet, I think they're still young enough that they have time to still, progress and get to that tier before it becomes like, hey, we're watching.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, I see what you're saying, Jerome. Like, as far as like the pressure being on them to win immediately, I don't think that's there yet. Of course, I mean, both of those guys are in their early 20s still, so it's not like it's a do or die season or anything. But at the same time, like, I think, there is a mental aspect that they do have to get over. I think that, it comes into play when you're at the threshold of something as great as the finals. And those guys being there 2 years, as young as they were, like they tasted that, and it's going to be in the back of their minds every season for the rest of their careers, especially if they're in that postseason scenario. And that's the hardest part in the NBA. It's not as difficult to go from being bad to good because you can make a couple of changes and go from being a lottery team to a playoff team. The Hawks, just sign some guys to free agency, like, hey, you're at the doorstep, cool. But that next level, getting to a championship, man, like there has to be a mental aspect because it's not about who's the best athlete anymore. It's not about just sheer talent. It's about outwitting your opponent. Like we saw that in Boston versus Toronto. It was about those two great genius minds, coaching minds going at each other. And it came down to the little things. So for those guys here on out, it's going to be the playmaking just alluded to earlier. It's going to be, getting your shooting percentage a little bit higher, the defensive cues and matchups and things like that. So like, I think both of you guys make a great point. There is a mental aspect, but it's not, urgent for them right now to make the finals. Although they want to, the organization wants to when you're that close before.
I mean, and they play for the Celtics, so they expect nothing but championships. So that mindset has to be, get the Larry O.B. From jump. That's the automatic mindset from the season. So even though they're really young, but they like you guys said, they've been right there twice in the last 3 years. So it's just about taking that next step and taking that game to another level.
Definitely. Just to add on top, like they had it last year. Last year was their year. If any year to make it out the East, it was wide open for them the last 2 years for sure. But for sure, last year they definitely had it. So I think, like you guys said, Brown and Tatum, they've tasted it, so they know like we could get there. So I like it is. They got to take that next step, and they can. But it's all about taking that next step, and I think they could do it soon. They have the pieces.
My problem with Jason Tatum is it takes too long for him to get going. It just takes way too long for him to get going. It's like, okay, Jason Tatum, like, okay. And you're just waiting on it, instead of him just coming out and just being aggressive and, not being cold and just doing that. I honestly say that about Jaylen Brown. It does not take Jaylen Brown to get a lot to get going. I think he gets going on the defensive end, and then he kind of just transitions back to the offensive end, in my opinion, when I watch Jaylen Brown play. Been a huge Jaylen Brown fan since he was at Cal. I just love the way he plays, and he got better this year, and you could just see him progressing. He had a little injury this year, but he was progressing to get better. And I thought Boston had a chance to make the finals this year. I really, really did. They were one of those teams I was like, okay, Boston, you can do it, because I didn't trust Milwaukee. Of course, the Heat were my dark horse. Who else do we have? Philly was just a mess. Toronto was my pick to make it out of the East, but it didn't quite happen that way. But I thought Boston had a chance. I really did. Their lack of size worried me because when they used to play against the Lakers, when they played against the Lakers twice, the Lakers just pounded them on the boards. And that worried me, their size did. But the Lakers have crazy size, so it's just like, okay, that size is hard to match up with anyway. But they made up for it because you had 3 guys on the court. If you add Hayward in there, 4. If you add Hayward, they can get you 20. So it kind of like made up for that lack of size. But at some point, you're going to need to rebound the ball. You see what happened to the Houston Rockets. At some point, you're going to need to rebound the ball. And I think that Boston kind of solved that issue by getting Tristan Thompson. I want to know what Tristan Thompson looks like in that Brad Stevens system. What kind of?
So sorry. I just want to remind. I don't know if y'all know, but Tristan Thompson's out right now with the bummed hammy already. So keep that in mind.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I already got a bummed hammy, so I think he's gonna miss part of the training camp and probably some games in the preseason. But continue. I just wanted to throw that out there because you mentioned Tristan Thompson.
Yeah. Oh, he has a bum hammy. I didn't know that. Goodness, Tristan. Okay, yeah. Mark said, I'm gonna read some of these comments, guys. They beat the just training. Mark said just training camp, so he's just gonna miss.
Okay, yeah,
just
okay.
Okay, they beat the Lakers by 32 in the regular season. He should be good for game 1. Have been a great. It would have been a great season. Okay, yeah, but the rebounding, Mark, you know that you guys needed big men. They needed some rebounding with Boston. Um, that's just in my opinion. The Lakers, but it's the Lakers though, and I put them against the Lakers because I knew the Lakers probably the Lakers or the Clippers coming out of the West.
Don't worry about the Clippers. Don't ever worry about the Clippers. And I know that never worry about the Clippers. Don't worry about the Clippers. No, yeah, absolutely.
Oh my goodness!
Don't worry about them.
We knew it was a team that was going to be from LA that was going to the finals. Okay, we all knew that. So that's why when I said that Laker game, that's what I was referring to. But the Lakers' size is just kind of unmatched. Speaking of the pressure making it to the finals, speaking of pressure, what kind of pressure do you guys think this team has? The Brooklyn Nets. I mean, there's a ton of pressure on Brooklyn. You got KD, you got Kyrie. Karis LeVert took the next step. He stepped up stepped up big for them. I love Karis LeVert. Spencer Dinwiddie played well. I mean, Joe Harris just signed. You got DeAndre Jordan there. You got Jared Allen there. I mean, they've got players. You just got Shamet. He's a sharpshooter. Hopefully he gets used properly. How do you guys feel about Brooklyn?
That team is scary. If that team can perform like how we think they can perform, they're going to be dangerous. Imagine a lineup of you got Kyrie. You're going to have Kyrie, but you have Kyrie, Karis LeVert, Shamet, Harris, and let's say you just throw KD out of 5 and have a total positionless basketball full of switches and spread everybody out. You have Karis handling the ball. You have Kyrie on the wing. KD can be cutting and doing his thing. And you have Shamet and Joe Harris on either side. That's crazy. That's a lot of space. Obviously, this all only works if KD's healthy. If KD's not healthy and he doesn't look like, I'll say 60 to 70%, then I think we kind of quickly realize that and the extensions will probably tail off. But as long as KD can look anything 75% up, it's going to be almost like a championship or bust just because of the rest of the roster. Especially if they even get close to getting James Harden, or if James Harden gets there, then I think it's a wash. A healthy Brooklyn with Harden, that's it.
That's three ball stoppers though.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think KD's at the point where I think Kyrie's gonna have to defer to KD. It's gonna be a Harden and KD because I think
we'll see about that.
KD is efficient.
Or he's gonna have to go in the trade. So he's gonna have to either humble himself or he's gonna be shipped the other way. So
yeah, KD's efficient though. I mean, KD doesn't need much to get 25 points. You gotta remember that too. He doesn't need much.
Easy
right. 25. Like it's so
easy.
Yeah, I mean, Kyrie and Harden can shoot 20 shots, 20 to 25 shots each. KD gets 15 shots, he's going to probably score 27 points.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Okay, they definitely have the pieces to put
my bad, Caleb. Quickly, why don't you guys go? Who brings the ball up more, Kyrie or KD?
Kyrie.
I say Kyrie, yeah.
Because of who's on the floor, though.
It's point guard.
Because of who's on the floor. Like, because KD would bring the ball up for the Warriors, but Draymond and Steph will bring the ball up too. You know what I mean? It depends who's on the floor, in my opinion.
Okay. And both of them are probably shredded.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to see where y'all heads are at. I just wanted to test the room. That's it. My bad, Caleb. Go ahead, Caleb. My bad, Caleb.
No, but I was saying, like, they definitely have the pieces to put the points on the board. That's not a question. But with the first-time head coach with Steve Nash, how are they going to look? What system are they going to run? That's what's really interesting. How is he going to use Kyrie and Kevin Durant? So, like, I don't expect him to go that far this first year.
That's it. Let me piggyback off that, Caleb. I have like 3 problems with this team already. I honest to goodness think this is going to be a disaster. And I'm not just like hot take. I think this is going to be bad, and I'll tell you why. First of all, like the coaches come out, and when I hear Kyrie and Kevin Durant say we don't have head coaches, they got a first-year head coach in Steve Nash, and they come out and say I don't really think that we have head coaches. Okay, that to me. That sounds like a bad culture thing, like from day one. You have to have some form of leadership. Look at the champions, the past champions, the past 5 or 6 champions. They've had a good culture, good leadership. Kyrie is known. He's a known quantity. We know what he is. He is one of the most skilled basketball players in the world, but he is very hard to get along with. like with his teammates. And so you got Steve Nash, first year head coach, coming in. You have the players already saying, we don't have a head coach. Jock Vaughn's coaching the defense. Mike D'Antoni's coaching the offense, and they're going to do a thing by committee. And here's my thing with them. Who's playing defense? Like, Kyrie's not playing defense. Kevin Durant's coming off a torn Achilles injury. He got better on defense, but I don't really know about that. I just feel like, I feel like that what Caleb said is correct. That's a bunch of ball stoppers on one team. And if they get James Harden in the mix, I know that's a lot of talent, but talent in the first year doesn't always equate to success. Look back at the Miami Heat Big Three. They struggled their first year together. Some of these teams that have been put together with all this talent, we've said, oh, man, they're going to run through the league. And that doesn't always happen. You have to have the right pieces that fit together. And if James Harden gets on that team, you won't see an assist all year. It'll be let me dribble as long as I can, and I'm gonna shoot. Now it's your turn. And then I just feel like midway through the year, we're going to hear some weird story about how Kyrie's depressed in his room, with sage candles going on, and Kevin Durant's trying to break in. James Harden's at the strip club somewhere, and if that happens, I just feel like this is a disaster waiting to happen, and I honestly think that they underachieved this year.
I could see that. I could definitely see that, Andrew, and I wouldn't go as far as to say they're just going to crash and burn and they're going to be a 7 seed. I think their talent will pull them to at least 4 or 5, if not higher. I think they have a high ceiling as far as the seeding goes. But when it comes to winning a championship or getting deep in the playoffs, that's where the problems are going to arise, because they have those talents, but health is an issue as always. Kyrie, when was the last time Kyrie played 70-plus games? I cannot remember. He breaks down at some point. It's a knee, it's, an ankle or something like that. He's going to miss time. So that's a question. The fit is a question. There's just red flags going up in that camp. And, the things that people are saying, I'm not, completely convinced that it's going to work out. But when it comes to KD specifically, I will say this. KD is going to have this luxury he hasn't had in quite some time, depth on that team. He's so used to being that guy, especially with the Warriors. They continuously cut down on that depth every year because they had to, had to make the money work. You had to get these players. So, KD had to dominate the action. Even with Curry, he had a lot of touches, a lot of shots. He was still the guy when it came to scoring. With the Nets, he's going to have the benefit of taking a slight step back to Kyrie, Spencer Dinwiddie. I feel like we haven't barely even talked about Spencer Dinwiddie, a 6 man of the year type guy off the bench, can get you 20 any given night. Karis LeVert, all these guys, Joe Harris. So KD can take a step back. And then something I mentioned on my podcast the other night, this is a guy that doesn't rely on athleticism quite as much as John Wall, for instance. Right. He's not trying to blow by people every time. He has so much finesse and skill that he can go out there, play his game. He can rely on some fadeaways. His jump shot is not some kind of crazy jump shot where the mechanics are all over the place. It's very fluid. So I don't think the Achilles is going to hamper him to the point where he's ineffective. And he has a cushion. If he drops off 10%, 15%, he's still a top 10, 15 player probably. So that gives them a lot of hope specifically. And then for that team, it's going to help them a lot too. So even if they don't jettison guys to get another third star, I don't think they need to. If you have Jared Allen coming off the bench, oh man, well, what a luxury that is. Spencer Dinwiddie. So if guys are hurt or whatnot, they can kind of coast and take their time. So I think that team is going to be fine in the regular season. But I don't see them making any kind of crazy run, making the finals, because there's just a lot of question marks and a lot of weird personalities. At some point there's going to be a drama story. Just wait for it. There's going to be a huge story.
I have a question. Do you guys feel that KD's, say for instance, KD is 15% off. Let's say he's about 85%. Do you think his efficiency makes up for that drop off?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Because I was arguing with somebody the other day. Oh, goodness. NBA Twitter is a fun place, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
I was like, KD's not going to average 20. I was like, it's an offensive league.
Wait, he's not going to average 20?
He's not going to average 20. I said,
that's where the conversation ends.
You don't respect that.
That's where the conversation
I'm like, it's an offensive league.
It's crazy.
Carmelo Anthony almost averaged, we averaged what, 15, 16?
Yeah.
as
I
a
mean,
fifth option. Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, and Carmelo Anthony was a gifted scorer in his prime. KD is a gifted scorer. There is no way that KD doesn't average 25 this season. There is no way. He's too
Right.
efficient, in my opinion. Now, he will be rusty. He will be rusty. I will say that. But the jump shot comes back. I remember when I went back to the gym after being out of the gym for a year and a half, the first day I went in the gym and shot a jump shot, it didn't feel right. The second day, it felt better. The third day, it felt better. I'm putting up 200 jump shots a day now, and I probably miss 40. So if I'm missing 40 jump shots out of 200, I just imagine what KD, is going to miss. You know what I mean? That's just the type of player and guy he is. He doesn't need to explode off that Achilles. Please do not explode off that foot again, Kevin Durant. Please, if you don't feel up to it, don't do it. I just knew it was gonna
You
go.
know what?
I just
I
knew
think
it.
even now, I think KD will have an advantage of getting the benefit of the whistle. I
You
think
think
that
so?
I think the refs are going to start respecting him a little bit more than they maybe already do. And knowing that he's come off his Achilles, I wouldn't be surprised if the whistle was a little bit soft for KD.
Wow, superstar treatment, huh? Think he's gonna get that superstar
Possibly.
treatment?
I think
Possibly.
the X factor for the Nets is Steve Nash. I mean, look at two things. One, how is he going to be able to manage egos, like you guys said, Kyrie and KD, probably two of the biggest egos in the NBA we have right now. They're kind of similar, which is interesting that they both teamed up, form a dynamic to go to Brooklyn. So Nash being in Golden State, being with a guy like Steve Kerr, also did a great job of managing egos when KD got there. Even with a guy like Draymond, who's very fiery, he's had multiple situations go on, and Steve Kerr's done a great job of managing those guys. So with Steve Nash being a consultant, helping KD during his time in Golden State, and then also what type of scheme are they going to run? Steve Nash for the majority of his career was with Mike D'Antoni. He's also an assistant coach, like you guys alluded to. Are they going to do the 7 seconds or less offense? I don't see that being successful to win a championship. We just saw that with Harden and in Houston. That's not how you win a championship. You can't win a championship playing 5 out. So what are they going to do? Is he going to sprinkle a little bit of what he saw from Steve Kerr? And then also Kyrie. Kyrie's going to have to pick and choose when to score, when to be effective offensively from a scoring standpoint. He has to be more of a true point guard. Hopefully a guy like Steve Nash, who was known for being a pass-first guy, known for getting guys involved. He's going to have to be that type of player in order for them to have success. And then once the fourth quarter comes around, him and KD can step up and close games. And like we know they have done late in games in the regular season. Obviously, both of those guys making big plays in the finals when it matters. So I'm interested to see that dynamic. And then also for the bigs as well. I think Amari being there, I think that's going to help Jared Allen's progression as a big, helping him more offensively. Doesn't have to be a guy that, face up like Amari used to do, but continue to run the floor, block shots. A guy like DeAndre Jordan being there as well, being a big mentor for him. So they have a solid team. I don't want to see James Harden on the team because it really takes away from, not even from the ball stopper standpoint, it just takes away from a lot of their depth. They're going to have to give up LeVert, they're going to have to give up multiple assets, and they just gave up multiple assets a few years ago when they had Billy King as a GM. So you want to be able to keep your assets. You never know what's going to happen. Both of these guys have dealt with injury over the last 3 years. So if they can figure it out, I think we'll see maybe in the first 30 games or so what this team is going to look like. But I think they to me they look like one of the best teams in the East just because of the two guys they have. We in this dynamic duo era right now, and to me they outside of LeBron and AD, they got to be right there. So they can figure it out. They have good chemistry. They seem like they're great friends. We all seen that clip at the All-Star game. They were talking, and KD alluded to in his podcast with Kyrie. That was a time when they talked about teaming up and playing together. They look like they want to team up and do something special. They have some big narratives they both need to fill. Obviously, Kyrie leaving LeBron, want to be able to win a championship, and then the big narrative with KD is he chased to get a ring in Golden State. Will he be able to be that guy in Brooklyn to lead the team to a championship and put himself in that upper echelon, all-time greats with LeBron, with Kobe, with Jordan? So it's a big test for those guys.
I got a question for all of y'all really quickly. If you were the Nets GM and Houston called you and they said they wanted LeVert, Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, and multiple first-round picks, I just yes or no? Would you? I want everybody's answer. Would you give all that up for James Harden?
No.
Is he gonna resign? No, I don't think. Do you think he will resign in Brooklyn long term?
I wouldn't give it up. I wouldn't give it. That's a lot. That's your future right there. That's your future.
Yeah.
And LeVert,
I wouldn't either.
And on the court, LeVert is that X factor. I mean, you look at what he did against Boston, the team we just talked about, put up 56 last year. So he's a dog, and even in the bubble, he played really well.
Yeah,
they were just outmanned. He had a really good game against the Trailblazers. That last game for the Trailblazers to get in that bubble and make some noise and get that 8th spot. He balled out. Was able to also be a great passer as well. So he's continued to improve as he's gotten healthy. So if those three guys, they could step up. I don't see why, if their ceiling is coming out the East, being in the finals, and then if the chemistry's not right, they could be one of those teams like kind of similar to the Clippers, get knocked out in the second round, but we expected them to do a lot more.
Yeah, I wouldn't go for that deal. I think the asking price is fair because, you talk about stars in the league, the asking price. You think about what was given up for Anthony Davis and Paul George last year. If it's about that it's somewhere in that area. It's like multiple young talents with a lot of potential, multiple first-round picks. It's the going rate, so that's fair. But we just talked about all the issues that could arise if Harden is introduced into that lineup and that culture. That could really go downhill. And you ask someone like Steve Nash, he's been in that before. Think about that Lakers team that year, whatever it was, 2012 or something, where all those guys got together and they had Dwight Howard and that crashed and burned. So I'm sure if you talk to him and it's like, what do you think about this deal? You get deja vu and he's like, you know what? Let's pass on that one because I'm not trying to go through that again.
Let me ask you guys a question. Would you do the Kyrie for James Harden swap?
Ooh.
I would because I honestly think I don't want Kyrie Irving on my team. I'm just being honest.
I don't either, man. I wish you.
I'm just being honest. Like I'm a LeBron guy. Obviously, if you've been around me, you know that. And I watched Kyrie and I enjoyed Kyrie watching him play ball. Him and LeBron together in that 2016 Finals was one of the most special dynamic duo performances I've ever seen. That was unbelievable. But Kyrie destroyed that. Like he destroyed that with being so chaotic, and you can just see it, man. He's really passive aggressive all the time. There's always some drama starting. There's always something being said, and I don't want him on my team. That's just my opinion.
Me either.
Yeah,
me either.
And plus, I'm high on Jared Allen. So for me, if I'm a fan of Brooklyn, and we do have to trade something for Harden, Kyrie can. Yeah, he's out of there.
Yeah.
I thought about that scenario. I thought about the swap because you have to think about it. Houston doesn't have any, Oklahoma City Thunder took some picks, we did what we did. But they don't have much because they got what they get for Russell. They got John Wall in a 20
first round. Yeah,
2023. Just think about that. Like,
is that Bronny's draft class?
Oh, goodness.
I think so.
It might have made since 2022. So, yeah, that is Ronnie's draft class.
Wait, is that Ronnie's draft class?
You have to think about Houston doesn't have any picks. So it would probably be like a James Harden for Kyrie. And I don't know what Brooklyn has as far as picks are concerned, but they would have to give up a pick or two. You see what I'm saying? Because Houston doesn't have anything, so you could probably swap that out. I wouldn't give up my young core for James Harden because nobody's really signing long-term deals in the NBA anymore. Like people are doing 2s or 1+1s.
AD was an exception.
Except the greatest franchise.
Well, you're in LA.
Yeah.
He's a perfect condition.
Yeah, that's where you want to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's where everyone wants to be.
You're playing with LeBron in La La. Who wouldn't sign up?
Yeah.
Now,
they take care of the guys.
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell signed his, but that's off of that's off of his rookie deal, which is to be expected.
The rookies will always get their money.
Always get their money. So that makes sense. But these guys past their rookie contracts aren't signing 5-year deals. Like it's just not happening. You're getting a 1+1 or a 2-year deal or something like that. So that would be a lot of talent that you send to Houston just for a guy that's probably going to be there maybe 1 or 2 years. You see what I'm saying?
There's also a really good. I mean, I honestly believe there's a really good chance that like in 2 years, this whole thing, like we just realized it didn't work, and like some of those players are in some other places. Like I just think this is one of those. Like I think the same way with the Clippers right now. Like you could look next year and that they could be gone. And you know they've given up all this stuff for those two guys. And I think that there is and I don't know how likely it is, but there is a scenario where this just doesn't work. And then in 2 years you look and say, okay, Kyrie's somewhere else. And I mean, I kind of think KD stays around because of the injury and stuff, but I think it could look. I mean, this might just blow up and not work. So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Speaking of New York teams, we're going to transition.
Let's go.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Let's go.
Hey, let it out right now, my man. Let it out, man. Just go for it.
We're transitioning to the New York Knicks. And, you know, the New York Knicks and their love for power forwards and forwards has been over the past couple of years. You got Leon Rose in there. That was a good deal. You got Tibbs in there. We'll see how that works. I like Tibbs. I really do. But we're going to see how that works with these young players. They've done some things in the offseason. They drafted Obi Toppin. You know, what does the Knicks' future look like? Like, how do we feel about the New York Knicks? You're playing in the Mecca, the greatest place to play in basketball, but you are the Knicks. So at the end of the day, you got a team, you know, in another borough that people are more excited about than you. That should never happen, Knicks. Sorry, CJ. That should never happen. You should never have a new team in a new borough, you know, where the boroughs, you know, been there. But a new team, right? They came from Jersey, moved to Brooklyn, and people are more excited about the Brooklyn Nets than the New York Knicks. Why is that, people? Why? Can someone explain it to me?
I mean, I think. Well, I'll start here. Well, the reason is because of structure at the top. And you look at, like we talked about with the Nets, Billy King, you know, Danny Ainge fleeced Billy King and got all those picks. As soon as they got Sean Marks, that's when everything started to turn around. They picked up some bad contracts, and you know they got D'Angelo Russell. Was able to flip D'Angelo Russell into some moves. Looked enticing. You know, it looked like a place where people wanted to go. And then as soon as I was able for some free agents to come around, that's when you get guys like KD and Kyrie. For the Knicks, they need to do the same thing. I think they're starting in that direction. Bringing a guy like Leon Rose, former big time agent at CAA, has a lot of connection with players, a lot of connections with, knows how to do contracts, knows how to properly run, do business. You got a guy like Thibodeau, obviously to me the best coach that the Knicks have had, you know, in a very long time. You could say Woodson, I'd say Van Gundy, maybe. So, you know, that he has a great resume. A lot of people talk about, you know, his minutes, how he plays his players. I think with this two-year hiatus of him not coaching, I think he's learned, you know, how to do some things, still keep his identity the same, but still understand, you know, the league is getting younger. You have to do some things differently if you want to be successful. Got rid of a lot of those power forwards that you talked about. Got the cap better. And you know, got some guys on some 1-year deals, and you know, didn't extend long term. A lot of people. There was a lot of stories about, you know, the Knicks possibly going after Gordon Hayward, Fred VanVleet from Toronto. You know, they didn't make any of those moves. You know, past Knicks front office regimes, they probably would have made those moves and signed those guys, and it would have hinged their cap for multiple years. You know, Leon Rose didn't do that. Understood the market. Knows what's at stake. You know, we're a young team right now, so what has to happen is they have to play well. They have to establish an identity and make the team enticing for big time free agents to go there. That needs to be the direction for the Knicks now. I think Leon Rose, Wild West as well, William Wesley, big time guys in the NBA who've made some moves, and I think they understand that they want to bring something special to New York. You know, we got some young players like you alluded to. Obi Toppin was a really good pickup. Probably going to have to move Randall. If you want to see Obi continue to develop and grow, hopefully RJ takes that next step. So, you know, I think you know, we're not going to win a lot of games, which is expected because talent roster wise, we're not up there with a lot of those teams in the Eastern Conference. But for me, I just want to see how we play. If we play hard defensively, offensively, and make strides to being a really good team. That's all I'm really asking for when it comes to the Knicks. I really like this new front office that we have in there. I think it's better than what we had before. Steve Mills did a terrible job. Fizdale, had Julius Randle playing like he was Giannis. That's that's not a formula for success in any basketball league. So, we're gonna struggle. We're gonna have our ups and downs. Still a young team, but I like the identity we're headed towards, and we'll see what happens. Vegas has us under 22 and a half. So we'll see what's up.
There are signs of life with the Knicks. I will say this, CJ. The Knicks, Andrew, we just talked about this before we went on the air. The Knicks didn't make any bad moves, and that's a start. With the Knicks, it's like they didn't do anything crazy. They didn't blow their cap. CJ, you just talked about that. So it's like, okay, they're on the right track, and they do have young pieces. So they are making some moves, like Thibodeau coming in. I do like that as well. There's a limit. There might be a limit as to how far you could take this team as far as their ultimate goal. But in the meantime, just trying to become competent, I think that's the kind of signing you want to see your team make. So they're off to a good start, but it all comes down to winning. And that's kind of where the problems still lie for the Knicks. The roster is still iffy. The fits are iffy. Randall and Toppin are not going to be able to coexist. RJ Barrett doesn't have the optimal roster around him to take advantage of his particular strengths. And ultimately, that's what it's going to take to get those free agents to come to your team. So you see a team that's young and has potential, but they're not manifesting that into wins. And until you do that, it doesn't matter how much cap space you have. The Knicks have all the cap space in the world right now. At one point in the offseason, I think they were actually below the salary cap. So they were they had so little money on the books, they had to sign more players. So that's not really going to do anything for them until they start winning like the Nets did. They started winning. They made the playoffs. Then they got Kyrie and KD. So until that happens, I'm still not really sure if the Knicks are even going to be remotely close to the playoffs. But they're signs of life, and that's more than been able to say about the Knicks in a few years.
I agree with you, Aaron, and I like what the Knicks have done. I don't think they're anywhere close to the playoffs this year, and I don't really necessarily think that they want to be. I think that they are in a rebuilding process for the next couple of years, and I do think, like you said, CJ, Leon Rose knows what he's doing. World Wide West is around. They got Kenny Payne from Kentucky to come be an assistant. I think New York has the right people in that front office, on that coaching staff now, that they can actually lure free agents there. New York's a market, man, that should be easy to get free agents to come to, just similar to, LA, but they've not been able to do that, over a series of time. If you think back to that LeBron D. Wade free agency, those guys have talked about that they were interested in playing in New York, and those guys just that they dropped the ball on recruiting them. But now they've got the right guys in there that I do believe that can lure people to New York. And I think the draft was really positive for them. Obi Toppin, I think, is going to be a good player. I think he could have – I'm not saying he's as good, but his game reminds me a little bit of Blake Griffin, high flyer. I think he can put up points. And I'm going to tell you, and obviously I'm biased towards Kentucky guys, but Emmanuel Quickley's a really good basketball player. And I honestly believe that Emmanuel Quickley can be as good and have the same impact as Tyler Hero had for the Miami Heat this year. And I mean that, because I've watched Emmanuel Quickley play for 2 years. He's an excellent shooter. He's an above-average defender. I think the Knicks are going in the right direction. I think that you look this year, like you said, try to move Randall, try to build a competent team. Get another draft pick next year. If you were able to get a low draft pick next year, maybe try to get a Cade Cunningham from Oklahoma State. Somebody that's another star. And then you look in a couple of years, when free agents pop up, is Devin Booker out there? Is it Karl Towns out there? Is it Bradley Beal out there that you can go and get? But I do honestly think for the first time in 10 years that the Knicks are going in the right direction. And I want them to be good, but I don't have a rooting interest, but I want them to be good because basketball is better when New York is good.
I have a question for you guys. Like I said, you guys said it all. Then there's hope in New York, and they have a lot of young talent. going off what you said, Andrew, they probably don't want to be good because they probably want to get a top pick. But I think if they could get a top pick, they could put themselves in contention to sign Giannis next season. I mean, yeah, next summer. What do y'all think? Do y'all think they have a shot?
I don't think they've proven enough yet to kind of command the attention of tier 1 stars. I think they're building something, which is nice, but the results aren't there. You know, you look at what the Nets did. You look at what some of the other teams did. The Clippers prior to getting Paul George and Kawhi, there's already an idea that they were trending upwards in terms of wins, competitiveness, playoff runs. I think that has to be in place before Giannis and Katie and those guys give you a meeting in free agency. That's just my thinking, but I don't think they've really earned that yet to this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh,
I agree. Just
Go ahead.
Yeah, it just depends on how we play this year. That's what I'm saying. Like the wins, probably not going to be a lot, but it's just the culture, what's established in terms of identity with Tibbs coaching. And so I think that's going to be the only way to lure some top guys in free agency. It's not going to be from we're in New York, we're a big market. You know, that narrative, that pitch has sailed. It hasn't worked. It's going to come down to what's on the court. These players are smart now, and they understand. Like, I'm not going to just go to a place and sign here for a lot of money just because it's a lot of money. I want to have a direction, a clear view, and if the front office doesn't match that, they're not gonna go.
I have a question, CJ. Who will be your starting point guard next year? I'm looking at the Knicks roster right now. Who do you think is going to be your starting point guard next year?
Yeah, that's the big question. You know, that's one of the biggest questions right now on the roster. Have a multitude of guys. Quickly, you know, he didn't play a lot of point, and at Kentucky they kind of had a 3-guard system with Maxey, and I'm forgetting the other guy's name. Higgins. So he played more off ball, but in high school he did play a lot of one. So we'll see what happens with that. Austin Rivers is more of a combo guard. I would like to see Frank be more aggressive from a scoring and passing standpoint. I think he's a really good defender. He could guard 1 through 3, but we just haven't seen that. This is his 4th coach in his 4th year, so it hasn't really been developed that great. So hopefully some of these the guys that we have in the coaching staff, I think has been big time with like Andrew said, Kenny Payne and Johnny Bryant come from Utah. Look at what he's done with Donovan Mitchell and Damian Lillard. So that's going to be great for RJ. I think RJ should play a little bit of one as well. Come up with the ball a little bit more, make some plays. He's an underrated playmaker. So I think it's just going to be by committee. I don't think it's going to be set in stone. Peyton's solid. I'm not really sure why we signed him. Want to see guys like Frank and some of the other guys get some looks, but I can't even answer it. We'll see what happens in these preseason games against Detroit and Chicago. Now that'll figure out what's going to happen at the start of the season.
Yeah, the Knicks have I'm looking at their roster and I'm trying to figure out who's not going to make the team. Right? You got Miles Powell, you got Emmanuel Quigley, and you got Obi Toppin as your rookies. I'm trying to really figure out who's going to make it and who's not going to make it. Also,
y'all need to find a way to get rid of Kevin Knox. That's what y'all need to do.
You guys aren't using Kevin Knox.
Whoa! Don't be bad mouth. This is a Kevin Knox support zone in here. Come on.
I like Kevin Knox.
That's the thing. I liked him in college and coming out. I'm like, he has good size. Like, I was interested in seeing how he would develop because that was a time where like the wings were coming in and wings can do it all, and that was like wings were kind of taking over the league. But I was like, dang. He fell flat. What's up with him?
What's up with
Calipari did say it was going to take some time. That was the first thing he said when he got drafted. He said, he's still young. When he got drafted, he was the youngest player in the league.
Yeah.
So he was really raw. And again, like I said, our developmental staff was very poor. So if you have a young guy like that where he needs a lot of work on both sides of the court, he can shoot the ball well. He has the length to be a really good player. He dropped some weight, so maybe he could play some 3, maybe some small ball 4 in certain lineups. But I like him as a player. In that draft, I was hoping we took MPJ. We see how that turned out. I think we're going to talk about Denver and the Western Conference in a little bit. So see what he's a walking bucket. So hopefully Knox could show some promise this year. and with a solid head coach and a solid developmental staff.
I think Knox is going to improve because he's comfortable with Kenny Payne. He worked with him at Kentucky. I think that's going to be big in his development. The thing with Kevin Knox is he has he's lacking confidence a lot of times. He did that in college as well. He would go just through games like where he would disappear, and it was because he didn't have confidence. And then there was a game at West Virginia, his year at Kentucky, where he was dropped 34 points because he finally got some confidence in his shot. He's a big guy, he's a tall guy. He's got a good frame. Like you said, CJ can shoot the ball really well. With him, it's about developing confidence and finding his role on the court, and not just floating, because he can float sometimes and just want to be a 3-point shooter and not be aggressive. I hope that staff works with him and helps him to develop to become aggressive, because I do believe, like you said, he's really young. I do believe he can be a piece for them. I don't know. He's not going to be a star or anything, but he could be a solid bench guy, solid rotation guy that you can throw in there, can give you, 8 to 10 points off the bench.
I like Kevin. I'm trying to wait for Kevin Knox to develop. Now, can he develop in New York? Do you think he'll be able to develop in New York? Does he have to go somewhere else?
It depends on the team. It's people really sleep on how coaching. I know it's a players' league, but you go right to Miami. Miami's a well-coached team. Look at where Spoelstra came from, training Wade. Being a developmental guy, into now being a multiple-time champion coach. It's that matters. Having those guys. During practice, watching film. How you watch film, what scheme are you going to run? All of that stuff matters. The Knicks haven't had that in years. So, hopefully with Thibodeau there, he could kind of develop something there. We'll see how these players progress.
Yeah, circumstance matters a lot. Like, we talk about guys just being talented, and it's like, okay, this guy went to New York, this guy went to Miami. The guy in Miami popped, the guy in New York didn't. Oh, okay, that guy in Miami is just 1,000 times better. I don't think that's a fair analysis. A lot of it is just opportunity.
Yep.
And where's the opportunity for Kevin Knox last year if he's blocked by Julius Randle and Taj Gibson and Bobby Portis? He can't play because there's 2,000 power forwards in front of him.
He had opportunity rookie year. He had opportunity his rookie year. He had the chance.
Rookie year, yeah.
Right, but then the second year they bring in forwards that hinges his progress.
First year. But you
gotta let him grow.
Knicks need vets. I think that's if Knicks need a good solid 1-2 vets, like how Miami. You speak about Miami and how highly you speak of them. Udonis Haslam is just signed a 1-year deal for how much million? You know what I mean? I think that the Knicks, they need a good vet that doesn't necessarily have to. They have to try to play, but just kind of to set a culture. Like Tibbs is gonna set it. It's gonna be a hard-nosed team, but I think they still need a vet to match Tim's intensity.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the Knicks. I'm looking at the roster. I'm like, dang, who's not going to make the team? But, with the COVID protocols and things like that, some players might come down with COVID, and those players, I think you get 15 on the roster now, right? They're giving you 15. Yeah. So it really just depends. I honestly, 22, you said they're giving them 22. Vegas is giving them 22 wins.
Yeah, they got 22 and a half. People of course, taking the under.
He hit the
under. It's fair, man. I get it.
You could probably hit they are in the East, but the East did get better. So maybe the under, maybe not the under. I don't know what the Knicks. I'm excited to see Coach Tibbs with that interesting core they have there. Very interesting core they have there with Coach Tibbs. He's a new coach in the East. Also, another new coach in the East. Doc Rivers, the Philadelphia 76ers.
What a segue queen.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm working on it. This is going to be very interesting. Because I want to actually see if Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons can actually play together. Because if they could play for any coach together, I think Doc Rivers is that guy. I know he has his playoff faults. I know, guys. I know. But Doc Rivers can still coach. He's better than Brett Brown. We can all agree there. He's better than Brett Brown. So how does the 76ers team match up? Because a lot of people had them in the finals last year. But how do they look this year? What the moves they made and things like that.
I think they did great. I think they flipped the team. They got rid of Al Horford's contract, so that was amazing. They brought back good shooters with Seth and Danny. he was bad for the Lakers last year. I hope he could just go revive himself in Philly. I'm glad we got him out of here, but I hope he could really revive himself out there. They got a good pickup in Maxi. I don't know how much
love
they'll
Maxey.
use him. I don't know how much they'll use him, but I think that's a good pickup.
Great
I
play.
mean, and Rivers is a great coach. Shake Milton, I'm excited to see what he could do.
Shout out to Tulsa 918. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they have a solid squad. I'm excited to see them. I think they should compete. Like, if this is the year, they need to be knocking at the door for sure. There's no excuse this year.
You know what Daryl Morey did in this offseason? He went back to, when they had J.J. Redick and Ilyasova. He looked at the footage and saw just how that spacing and that whole dynamic worked with Ben and Embiid, and he said, that's the key. That's where they're at their best. Insert those guys in there. Losing Josh, okay, that's fine. But, I mean, they're going to have to make a decision on him anyway. He had a player option coming up next season that would have added to their cap woes. It would have been a whole terrible ordeal. They might have lost him for nothing if they didn't re-sign him. And then, of course, Horford, that was just a disaster from the beginning. Might be the worst contract in the league. There's an argument. So they just hit it on all. They hit it. Like, it comes down to ownership, man. Like we got done talking about the Knicks, and that's why they're at where they're at, because ownership has made mistakes. With the Sixers, it comes down to the inverse. It's like ownership made all the perfect moves. They optimized the roster, and simultaneously helped their cap sheet. So it's just like two birds, one stone kind of scenario. They did everything perfectly right, and this is the time. Like, there's no more excuses. It's like you get down to business. And last thing I'll say is Embiid. I'm so excited to see how he reacts, because now he endorsed Doc Rivers. He's excited to see him there. So we should see that Embiid that we saw 2 years ago, where he was engaged, MVP candidate, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, All-NBA first-team guy. Like, I want to see him again, engaged every night. If I was a Sixers fan, I would be, over the moon right now. That perfect offseason.
I'm gonna go ahead and say the Sixers, and I really mean this. They're my dark horse finals team in the East. I think that they are. I agree with everything that you said, Aaron. I think that you got guys in Seth Curry and Danny Green that can play off the ball, that are really good shooters. And that 76ers team, man, should be elite defensively. Ben is a great defender. Joel is a great defender. Danny Green, although he's getting slower and couldn't hit the broadside of the barn last year for the Lakers, is still a really, really good defender. Maxey, like you said, Caleb, Maxey, I don't really think that we use Maxey great at Kentucky. And I think Maxey's going to be one of those guys that just blossoms in the NBA to a really good player. He's a good shooter, can handle the ball really well. You can play him at point a little bit. And I just, if I was a Sixers fan, I agree with you, Aaron. I'm really excited. And I think this is the year for me that Ben Simmons takes a massive leap. I just think that he's going to be so good this year. I'm excited to watch the Sixers play. And like I said, they're my dark horse finals team in the East.
You guys, I'm gonna go run and grab my computer charger. My laptop wants to be faulty and start to die on me, so I'll be right back. Just in case y'all thought I was gonna vanish, I'm not, Nick. I'll be right back. I promise.
Okay, we gotta get his StreamYard does not work. It always kicks him out for some reason, so we gotta handle that. I like what Philly did. I do. Now, if Joel and Ben can't work together this year, do you think they think about trading one? Do you think they think about it if it doesn't work this year with the pieces they have around them?
Yeah.
You should think. Yeah, they should think about it. I mean, they have a. This is probably one of the best rosters they've had in a very long time. With those guys being the cornerstone pieces. Obviously, Jimmy Butler being there, but and JJ Redick, that was a top notch roster right there. But I think now with Doc Rivers being there, playing with coaching guys like Blake and Kevin Garnett, former really solid bigs. You were hoping Embiid would take that next step. He played good against the Celtics. Just they were just outmanned. He put up 30 and 10 almost every game, but just wasn't enough. Daryl Morey coming there. Me and being the GM, he loves shooters, and the team needed shooters. So to me, it was a match made in heaven for that to occur, for him to go there and be the GM of the Sixers. I like their team, man. Ben Simmons is going to have to be able to knock down a jump shot, even if it's not a the 3-point shot. I mean, if they go under that screen, gotta hit that mid-range shot. You have to make it respectable. Defenses have to respect you. If they're sagging off, I mean, that just changes the whole complexity of the defense and of your team. You know, we look at the Bucks with Giannis. You know, that's pretty much what they do. They wait for Giannis to come to the paint, and they just wall up. You know, Miami did a great job of that. Even Orlando did a really good job of that. They just didn't have the talent to overcome and beat the Bucks. But Simmons is going to have to, just get a jump shot there. They do have some better floor spacers, so he can kind of drive to the rim. His style is very similar to Giannis. He could push the ball down the court, make plays for others. Really, really great defender. He was a top candidate for Defensive Player of the Year last year. So he's developed. And you got a guy like Matisse Thybulle as well, underrated player, big time wing, could play threes, could play on threes, could play on fours. They have a great team, man. Doc Rivers, I see why he didn't. There were talks about him, maybe taking a year off, but I think he looked at this team and saw a lot of potential. And the East is always up for grabs. It's never a clear cut team. And if Embiid and Simmons stay healthy, they definitely have a big time shot. I agree with Andrew. I mean, they're definitely a dark horse in being one of those top teams in the Eastern Conference.
Underrated signing for them as well was Dwight. I mean, at a minimum contract, you get Dwight, who, and I know Dwight's a head case as well, but you get Dwight coming off the bench, man. He was really good energy guy for the Lakers all throughout the bubble. Great rebounder, can run the floor really well. Is gonna be able to spell Joel and give him some rest to be able to play defense. I think that was a really underrated signing for them was getting Dwight at the minimum. Also hilarious that Dwight thought he was re-signing with the Lakers and tweeted out that the purple and gold was his home, only to realize they didn't actually offer him a contract and then immediately deleted the tweet and signed with the 76ers.
Classic Dwight. Like, who else would do that but him?
That's the Dwight Howard at its finest.
That's a good pickup though, because against the Bucks, they have a lot of size, and he could definitely take some fouls. He's still athletic. He's funny. People laugh at him, but he plays solid against Jokic. He made it physical for Jokic in that Western Conference Finals. Average about 7 rebounds. He's still a quality player in the league. So now he has a championship. He has that experience. He could bring some of that to a guy like Embiid. So that was a very underrated move. Even though it was funny. Yeah, that was funny. That was crazy, but. They got to steal. I feel like they got to steal in that backup 5 position.
Did y'all talk about the health?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
Because none of this, if Simmons is not healthy, or if Simmons misses a chunk of time, then you know what I mean. If Embiid, if he goes through his foot or his back or whatever injuries he sustains, his knees, then Philly's in trouble. But as long as Philly can stay healthy, like I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys said, I know Andrew was saying it too, but you asked your dark horse. Philly's been my dark horse for the past maybe 2-3 years.
Yeah,
they always look like that team. And somebody said it perfectly. This is one of the bright moments that I've ever had on NBA Twitter, and it was like Philly has the highest floor and the lowest ceiling. And I was like, that's like almost like the perfect way to describe it, because you expect Philly, they at least gotta get this. But if they really could do that, and they never get there, they have such a high floor and a low ceiling, because it's like the coaching. Now, obviously, Doc Rivers is there. I'm still super iffy on Doc Rivers. I think he had a lot of chances to succeed, hasn't done it. Obviously, you want to see and root for him to do well. But, I think as long as they're healthy, they can be competitive. But it all starts for me, because I know what Embiid's going to do. I know what Simmons is going to do when healthy, right? Like you said, the shooting there is better. Morey came and put his stamp on the team off almost ASAP, right? And now we're looking at, feel like, okay, they really got a roster that fits. They never had a roster that fit. Tobias Harris is gonna have to do things to step up. You can't be getting paid $180 million and playing like me at the Y. You know what I mean? You look like me at the Y. You're 6'10", 6'9", whatever size he is. He was almost an all-star. Came over from the Clippers, looked real good. So Tobias has got to be the X factor. He has to have some pride for me. I think that's where I'm at with him. But as long as Simmons and Embiid are healthy, they should be to be reckoned with.
That was the first time we had mentioned Tobias. Like this whole time, that was the first time. Like we had completely forgot about him. I forgot that he was on the team. That's the first time we mentioned him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he had one of his best years with Doc and with the Clippers. So
Clippers,
before he got
yeah.
traded, so
He did.
hopefully he can instill some confidence into Tobias. He could, be one of those quality guys for that roster.
For that money,
Thibault could definitely,
Mm-hmm.
usurp him. As he continues to develop and they can move him for potentially. We already see they just move Alford and that big contract. So if he's not playing well, they can definitely get some assets for him.
Hey, no one is safe on this team because I look at Daryl Morey as one of those guys. He's one of the great, just crazy thinkers in this league. Like he won't hesitate to make a move for the benefit of the team. Like he moved Chris Paul. He, was mastermind all those crazy moves. Like if this pairing doesn't work out, yeah, exactly. Like he will make moves. So like to go back to Caleb's question, if it doesn't work this year, will they move on? Like I absolutely think it's going to be on the table.
Yeah.
Because that's who Daryl Morey is. Like, if something isn't working, you just saw it with some of the offseason moves. They made 2 huge offseason moves, 2 starters that were gone. So I think no one is safe on this team, regardless of position or status, for next season. And if something doesn't work, if Ben plateaus or Embiid gets lazy again or whatever, like, one of those guys will be gone for sure.
Yeah.
That's who Morey is. Like, he will not hold back from pulling that
Great
trigger.
point.
It's just tough sometimes for me to root for Joel Embiid because he could be so great. You know what I mean? You see the flashes of greatness. It's just the injuries and I don't want to call him lazy, but even he said he was lazy, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Even he said, like, I've had my moments where I'm, lazy, but then he goes back and says, I'm the best player in the world. But I need to see that. Like, I need to see that night in and night out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no way that Boston should be bullying you. There's no way that, Giannis kind of bullies a lot of people, but there's no way that Bam should have better numbers. And there's just no way you should just let people just take advantage of you. And I'm tired of seeing him shoot 6 threes a game. I don't want to see that, Joel. Get your big butt on the block and bang. I don't want to see you step out. He sits out there on 3-point line. It's like, okay, well, Ben Simmons is not going to bang. So we need somebody to bang, and you're perfect for it.
That's coaching right there.
Fadeaway jumper over your left shoulder or your right shoulder. I don't care. Put your big butt on the block. Don't be standing out there on the 3-point line. For what? But I think that is coaching. You're right, CJ, and spacing. I think they'll have better spacing this year. I really, really do. Now, losing Richardson on a defensive end might hurt a little bit because he was a great defender, but the spacing they're going to get is going to be very, very good for them, I believe.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
No excuses, man.
They don't have an excuse. And Doc Rivers should really, really take advantage of this opportunity he has to coach 2 very, very good young players. Very, very good young players.
And he should be thankful that he is no longer near Paul George. So
now you got a son-in-law.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
a true son-in-law, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best.
Imagine if they signed Austin Rivers. That whole family dynamic would have been hilarious. Man.
Yeah.
Now this team is going through a little transition. They lost 2 pretty good big men. Now let's see what Nick Nurse can do with this new roster. The Toronto Raptors, the last team we're going to cover in the Atlantic. How do you guys feel about what Toronto did, who they lost Serge Ibaka, you re-signed Fred VanVleet, but you lost Serge, you lost Marc Gasol. What does Toronto have left in the tank?
Man,
do you want to go? Go ahead.
I think Siakam has to continue to improve, step up, has to develop as a better shot creator. Look at against the Celtics. He tried to do his patent, in the post, do that little spin move and put it off the glass. But Tatum and Brown, they weren't having that. So yes, he has to continue to develop. He has to take his game to a whole nother level now. Like you said, they lost two key pieces in the middle. They re-signed VanVleet, which is very important as Kyle Lowry continues as he gets older. You want to have those guys, VanVleet and Siakam, be those 2 guys going forward for the future of the team. But they did lose some size, and that's going to be a key factor for them, especially in the playoffs. I think they take a step back this year. I think they'll still be in the playoffs, but I don't think they'll be in that top 2, top 3 seed. Even though Nick Nurse is a an excellent head coach, he's great schematically, but you still have to have the roster, you still have to have those guys out there. So I don't, and they're playing in Tampa too. They're playing in Tampa Bay. They're not going to be playing in Toronto, like they're so accustomed to doing. So a lot of changes for that team. But if Siakam could step up, and he's 20, I think he's 27 now. Still well in his entering his prime right now as the team develop as a player. He's gotten better every single year. So let's take that next step. Be one of those top guys in the conference. If he could play like that and elevate those guys to a higher standard, they're going to be good. But I don't see them being in that title contention as other teams in the Eastern Conference got better. Like we just talked about with Philly, Brooklyn's going to be there. So I think they take a small step back, but they'll still be a dangerous team to go up against because they're still really good defensively.
So they did get Aaron Baines and they did get Alex Lynn. So, but that's not Serge Ibaka and Marcus Arthur, so
Aaron Baines is good though. I mean, he gets dunked on a lot.
Yeah, he's solid.
He gets dunked on a lot, but he can knock out.
He's undersized though.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, very much so. I really root hard for Kyle Lowry, Philly guy, because he has so much pain when LeBron was in the Eastern Conference. It's just so much pain he has endured. And you root for a guy like that because you want to see him do well. He got his ring, and I'm happy he got his ring. I am so happy Kyle Lowry got his ring.
Yeah.
Because that LeBron bug is something else. Like that Jordan bug was something else.
Hey, listen, they can trade him to the Clippers, and he can have some more pain if he wants it. Like, that ain't no problem. He can out to LA. That pain's still waiting on him out there if he wants it.
Do you think they should try to get DeRozan back?
Nah.
It's over?
The thing for us, like, out here, it's like DeRozan was a really good player, and I think it was just a thing where DeRozan met his ceiling. You can see it in the Spurs. Like, obviously, he's passing the ball a little bit more, and I think he's getting better as a playmaker. But I don't think DeRozan is that difference maker anymore. I think we're like for example, we had it was DeRozan, Jimmy Butler, James Harden, Klay Thompson. Who's the best two guard in the league? Now it's kind of like DeRozan's that almost like the afterthought, where it's not like he's just like a good player now. No more All-Star appearances, no more All-NBAs. I think him coming to Toronto would take the ball out of Lowry's hands, take the ball out of, let's say, Norman Powell's hands. Not saying that Norman Powell is DeRozan by any means, but I think that the direction that the Raptors are going in, unless DeRozan doesn't move the needle in the East anymore, I just don't think that the wings in the East are just a lot better. Teams are just more explosive. He still doesn't want to shoot threes, which was his biggest knock here. So, you know what I mean? For me, I wouldn't want DeRozan. I wouldn't want him back in Toronto. I just don't think that move makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, Perry said the Hawks are better than the Raptors. Do you guys think that?
Who said that, Perry?
I gotta see Atlanta play.
I think so.
Who do they start? Like, what's that lineup look like?
See, they need to start Cam Reddish. Go ahead.
I was going to go off what you said just a second ago, Drum. I think with what you said with the 76ers, I believe with the Raptors. I think the Raptors have the highest floor and the lowest ceiling. They have a good organizational structure. Masai Ujiri is one of the best basketball minds as far as like management goes out there. They've got Nick Nurse, who is one of the best X's and O's coaches strategically in the game. They've got guys that know how to win. Kyle Lowry is the winner. They've had guys that have been there. You expect OG Anunoby to continue to progress as a young talent. You're hopeful that Pascal Siakam takes another step. But with that being said, like I don't think their ceiling is very high. I mean, I think their ceiling this year is the second round of the playoffs. And, I like Van Vliet. I think Van Vliet's a good player, but Van Vliet doesn't move the needle. I think that we maybe thought more of Pascal Siakam than what he actually is. That there was times going into the season last year that we said, is he comparable to Jason Tatum? Is he good? It's obvious that he's not that. I mean, I just don't think that he is. I think that he's got a lot of potential and he can be very good. But I think that we need to kind of slow down the expectations for Pascal Siakam just a little bit. If he's the third best player on your team, then I think that you have a really good team. But if you try to run him as your best player, then you are limited as what you can be. I think that the Raptors are going to win a lot of games this year because every night that you have to go up against Nick Nurse and Kyle Lowry, it's going to be a tough game for you to win, and they're going to be prepared. But I think as far as talent goes, that team is capped on talent. I think that this is the year that, like you guys said, this is the year they take a step back. I think that they're a 6-7 seed in the East, and you're looking at possibly the second round of the playoffs, and I just think that you could start to see them transition away from the older generation and try to start building young.
Yeah, totally agree with that, Andrew. I mean, I was thinking about that right as you said that comment about Siakam. I mean, that's what I was thinking previously. Was like Siakam is not number one option type guy. Like I think we saw that in the bubble. We've been seeing that here and there. Like he's had some games where he's put up 30 plus. Like he is a great player. He is an all NBA type guy, but that's not necessarily someone that you're going to rely on to be the number one option for you if you want to win a championship. So that's why I agree. I think their ceiling is like a second round, berth in the playoffs. They're really good, but they find themselves at a crossroads, right? So you have Van Vliet re-signed. That's great. Kyle Lowry's getting older. You lost two bigs. OG Anunoby, I think, has a little bit more to grow, but he's not going to be this insanely great, like all-NBA, all-star type guy, I don't think. So that leaves you with Siakam. And the Raptors have realized this, and I think that's why. And this is one of the really cool tidbits about Van Vliet's contract is it descends next season. It goes down by 8%. You don't see that very often. And they did that because they want to preserve cap space for 21 because you know what? They know they need that next guy to come in there so Siakam could be the number two. Because when they won the championship, guess what? Siakam was the number two guy. So to get back there, they need that tier one star like a Giannis. That's their primary goal. And that's why they made certain moves to preserve cap space. They're looking forward to next season. Like this is not a championship season for Toronto. But next year, if they can get that tier one guy, they're instantly going to be back in the conversation. The guy that replaces Kawhi as the undisputed leader, number one guy on the team. And they're going to make a great case. Like if Giannis doesn't sign that Supermax, like I think he'll take a look at Toronto because similar to Miami, they have great personnel, great coaching. They develop their players, better than almost anybody. And, that's going to give them a lot of hope for 21 and beyond. But for right now, yeah, I'm on the same page. They're just not going to be able to make a crazy run because Siakam is not a top 10 player. And that's what you need if you want to win a championship in this league. So they're in a good place, but they're a little bit hamstrung right now as far as how far they can go.
All right, guys. Perry sent the Atlanta Hawks roster over. So we got Trey, Bogdanovich, Reddish, Collins, Capella. And off the bench, you have Gallo, DeAndre Hunter, Rondo, Herter, and Oko. And then you got Solomon Hill, Chris Dunn. He said the Hawks are 4 or 5 seed next year, same with the Raptors. He said it's the coaching advantage for the Raptors right now. But give me that roster over the Raptors roster. What do you guys think about that?
Any day.
Yeah, their roster looks really good, man. They have a lot of depth. They have a lot of depth.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, CJ. How he has Atlanta as a 4 or 5 seed and the Raptors as a 4 or 5 seed. So who does he have out? So what's the rest of his seedings?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Perry, what are the rest of your seedings, Perry?
I'm going to be like an outlier here. I don't know if I trust the Hawks. Like I don't know if I have the Hawks that high. I mean, they've got a lot of wings, and they made some good moves, and I know they're young, and I think they've got a good shot in the future if they continue to grow as long as Trae Young is as good as we think that he is. And I'm sure that we'll get more into them as when we talk about it. But I'm still a little bit hesitant to automatically anoint them in the Eastern Conference that's gotten a lot better because I think the Eastern Conference has improved significantly. And we've talked about teams in this division. You've got 3-4 teams in this division that could be the top 4 seeds in the East. I mean, and this is just one division. So I'm hesitant about saying, all right, the Hawks are going to be a top 5 seed. I know Trae is a phenomenal scorer. I think Cam Reddish has potential. I like Bogdan. Like I like some of the moves that I like Gallo off the bench and all that stuff. That's great. But I'm hesitant to automatically. I mean, I think they'll make the playoffs, but I mean, I don't know about them being like a top 5 seed.
Like, do we really realize how big of a jump that would be? I mean, what did they finish last season? I mean, they were like they didn't even qualify to be, in the bubble. So they were way back at like 12th. to go from 12th to like 4th or 5th. I mean, we're talking about that is a jump you don't see any team make unless they get LeBron.
Yeah,
That John
You agree
Collins
with that? Like
suspension.
LeBron, Kawhi, Giannis, that's who you need to make a jump that big. Like they're going to improve for sure. Like they're going to be a really good team. I see them as like a 7 or 8 seed.
Yeah, me too.
But there's still some question marks. There's still some young players there. And then to make a leap like that, you need experience. I don't think they have that right now. And then they still need time to kind of gel. Clint Capella hasn't played a game as a Hawk. So there's things they need to figure out still. Maybe next season. But for right now, I think they're a good team and not quite a great team. They need to do some more before they get there.
Perry has Bucks, Heat, Celtics, 76ers as top 4 for sure. Then I have Nets, Hawks, Raptors. He said Hornets and Pacers 7 or 8. He said the East didn't improve as much as you guys are saying. What do you think the Hawks are better than the Magic or Washington?
Did you think about the Heat?
Yeah, he has the Heat on there.
Oh, he said the Heat.
He has the Heat as a top 4.
Yeah. I noticed if you didn't put them in there.
No. I said, the Bucks. Okay, let's say it again, guys. I'm sorry. I talk a little fast. The Bucks, the Heat, the Celtics, the 76ers as his top 4. Then he has the Nets, Hawks, Raptors, and he said the Hornets and the Pacers have the 7 and 8. But remember, guys, they're going to have that play-in for that. Aren't they going to have a new playoff format in the NBA now? Like if you are
playing.
Yes.
Same type of bubble.
Give me the Raptors this year, but give me the Hawks for the future. I'll still take the Raptors over them this year. I mean, because I'm just gonna be honest with you. If you're telling me Nick Nurse is coaching the Raptors, give me them this year with that roster that has championship experience. I'll take the Hawks in the future, but I want the Raptors this year.
Yeah, I think the Raptors would probably be after those 4 teams. I put the Raptors in there, maybe like a 5. Pacers are still really solid. Like at that point, maybe it's a conversation if we're talking about 6 to 7.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Hawks are better than any of those 5 teams.
Caleb, did you have something?
Yeah. I was saying if you look at the Hawks roster with Trae Young and you look at the Mavericks with Luka, I feel like the Hawks and Trae Young have a better supporting cast. I mean, in the East has gotten better, but it's not as good as the West. So I mean, I see the Hawks as 4 to 6 for sure. Honestly.
Is the East top heavy? In you guys' opinion, is it just like top heavy?
I think it's just good. Period. I think like the bottom teams will be. No, let me rephrase.
Open, man.
I was like, let me rephrase that. Might sound crazy. I think the bottom is interesting and exciting to watch because they're good young team. They're really good young teams. Charlotte's gonna be box office because we all want to see what LaMelo's gonna do. Atlanta's gonna be interesting because of pieces. Orlando, we don't care about Orlando.
No one gets Orlando.
But the playing teams are going to be interesting to watch, and the top teams are going to be interesting to watch because of storylines. It's going to be the same thing. Can Boston get over the hump? Is KD going to be healthy? Is Embiid and Doc Rivers and Simmons going to work? Is James Harden going to come to the East? And we forgot about Washington with Beal and Westbrook, and they got some young players over there. So, I'm interested. A hot take: a number 1 seed, a number 2 seed is going to lose in the first round. Careful.
It's possible.
It's possible.
Okay.
Depends on the matchups. Playoffs are all about matchups. I agree with that. And a lot of times people don't look at it that way. People are like, oh, they beat them in the regular season 3 times. But then you go to the playoffs and you get beat, 4-3 or, 4-2, whatever it is. And you're like, wow, but we beat this team 3 times in regular season. Regular season basketball and playoff basketball, two different
animals. Two different animals.
Two different animals. I mean, I love playoff basketball. I really do. And I'm admit this, guys. I'm going to admit this on air. I've admitted it a couple of times before. I've only been watching regular season basketball, like seriously, like try to watch every game for the past maybe 3 or 4 years. Before that, I was like, okay, I'll watch from after All-Star break on because it was kind of like they didn't play as hard, in my opinion. Like they just didn't. It was just kind of like lackluster to watch. Now I'm excited to watch. And now there's 72 games. I'm very excited to watch. I'm very excited to watch.
That's an important factor because teams that can't just be all willy-nilly like they would be. You got 10 less games, so everything's going to be the sense of urgency has to be picked up before All-Star break, as opposed to, okay, we can kind of coast till March. Now it's like, you're all close until March. Y'all might not even be in the contention. So That's true. I didn't even think about that.
I think depth is more important this year. I really do, because you got the COVID issues and all that. You're going to need good depth, and I think you look at the teams with the depth and you think, all right, they may be favored over the teams that have a couple of stars. That's why going back to Brooklyn, I think it's really important for them to keep that depth together because with the shorter season, you need to do. You can't wait. Like you guys say, you can't wait to start playing. You got to come out of the gate. You got to be, pretty established to have a pretty good seed by the time the playoffs run around. I think depth's going to be important.
I think the East got better, and I think it'll be fun to watch those young teams in the East. So that is the Atlantic Division in the East. We're going to move to the West, and we're going to go to the Northwest Division, and we're going to start with a team that made the Western Conference Finals. When nobody really believed in them, I'm gonna just say this honestly. I was like, Denver, they kind of hung around that 2-3 seed all year long in the West. They came to the bubble and Jamal Murray turned into a different animal in the bubble. I don't know what happened to Jamal Murray, but after that injury, he just went rampant, scoring wise. And then Michael Porter Jr. He had his moments, and then Joker was a Joker. He lost that weight, and he started balling. The Nuggets had injuries, but they overcame those injuries and were able to meet the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals and overcome a 3-1 deficit against the Clippers. So, what does the Denver Nuggets season look like next year, guys, or this upcoming season?
They gotta contend. There's no excuse for them neither this year. I think they kind of have the pieces. They could have been a little bit more aggressive this free agency, but they kind of have the pieces. But I think they could contend. They had a lot of years. I mean, not a lot of years. They had the past 2 years. They had their growing pains. Last year was definitely a growing pain. I'm excited to see how they use MPJ, because if they could incorporate him more, they could be a lot better. So I think this year they gotta contend. They have to contend. They have to try to use Porter Jr. more. And I mean, Murray and Nikola, they gonna do their thing. Period.
Yeah, I have them as the second best team in the West. I just feel like MPJ continuing to get better, continuing to improve his game. Jeremy Grant was a big loss. He's improved every single year since probably that last year in OKC. Him going to the Pistons was a loss, but in that those minutes go to Michael Porter Jr. has to develop defensively, being better and guarding those wing guys. So it's a lot of responsibility for him if he wants to make that next step and be an all-star type guy and be one of those cornerstone pieces for the Nuggets. Yeah, Murray, he in the bubble, you could say he was one of the bubble playoff MVPs, definitely for sure. Or if there's an all bubble team, got to put him there as one of that top point guard. Nobody expected that first round. Him and Donovan Mitchell were going at it, putting up 50 and 40 every single game. It was a battle. It was great to watch. And Jokic is I mean, you could say him or Embiid or Karl Anthony Towns, but right up there as one of the top centers in the NBA. So they're going to be there. They've always been in that 3 seed. People have slept on them. They've had like Caleb said, they've had their growing pains. They have struggled with the Trailblazers 2 years ago. Then got over the hump and got to the Western Conference Finals last year. So they get better every single year. I love their team. I love the front office, how they get those guys. Hopefully we can see Bo play a little bit more this year as Millsap starts to get older. He could fill out that 4th spot. If they get that lineup in there with Bo and Michael Porter Jr., Jokic, and Jalen and Murray, that could be scary. That could be scary with the size and athleticism that they have, and Bo could space the floor as well. So if he could develop and become a better player, I think in a few years, as LeBron gets older, we'll see what the Lakers do, who they pick up after LeBron retires. They could definitely win a championship in the NBA. They keep that young core together for sure.
I'm actually a little bit worried about the Nuggets, X's and O's wise right now, and I'll tell you why. I think the loss of Jeremy Grant's going to be a lot bigger than we realized. Jeremy Grant was awesome in the bubble. I mean, he was very. I mean, I know Murray was the story, Jokic was the story. Jeremy Grant was great. I mean, he was a guy that was scoring really well, more than he had ever really scored. And here's the thing about Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant was a guy that could guard wings. And looking at the West, you're looking at, all right, who's the top teams in the West? The Lakers, LeBron, the Clippers. Who's their best players? Kawhi and Paul George. Those guys are wings. You have to have somebody that's able to guard those guys. And I'm not saying Jeremy Grant could, but he was the best guy that you could throw on those guys and say, all right, we can put him there to guard them. I'll worry about that this year coming into the season because I'm looking at the Nuggets, and I know Murray's great. I know offensively, this team is going to be a great offensive team. But just think about it for a second. They were in the Western Conference Finals, but they also almost lost in the first round. I mean, so, there's a couple of things that could have changed there where the Nuggets were out. And, they were down 3-1 to the Clippers, and they had great resiliency. But I think this could be one of those things where, like a couple of years ago, the Trailblazers were in the Western Conference Finals against the Warriors, and then the next year they took a step back. I think losing Jeremy Grant's a pretty big deal for that team. I still think they're going to be great. They're still going to be a top 4 seed. But I don't really expect them to be a Western Conference Finals type team again or an NBA Finals contender just because I look at those matchups when they come to the playoff and I say, all right, who are they throwing on Kawhi? Who are they throwing on LeBron?
Lost Torrey Craig too. That was a big loss.
Yeah. Like the story is out on Jokic and Murray and all these guys. And Andrew, I agreed. I'm worried about the absence of Jeremy Grant too. I've been reading about his performance last season. I mean, he turned into a really good 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
Like low key, he was up there at like 37%. So as a 4, that's a great weapon as far as like being able to do that and guard wings and forwards. Like that's a supremely valuable player in today's game. So that's going to hurt for sure. But a little silver lining here for the Nuggets potentially. We'll have to see how this works out. But we don't talk about Gary Harris anymore. Sure. And that's sad because from 16 to 18, he was one of the most efficient players, or at least one of the most efficient guards in the league. I pulled up some numbers on him. This is a guy that was shooting 57, 58%, and that's effective field goal percentage. So that adds in the added value of a 3-point shot. That was in the 90th to 95th percentile, those years between 16 to 18, where he was just flamethrower from everywhere. From 3, he was at 40%. He was 65 to 70% at the rim. Even in the mid-range, he was in the like 40% range. Last season, in the last 2 years, they've all dropped off a cliff where like he's below average in almost every area of the floor now, mid-range, rim, 3-pointer. So he's still a good defender, and that really helped out Denver in the bubble, having him come back from injury and be able to guard some of those guys like Donovan Mitchell, whatnot. That was a huge boon for him. But if Gary Harris is not that guy again, like if that's gone forever, that's going to be a huge hindrance to them. But if he can recapture some of that, then Denver's a different team. Like they still have Will Barton, who didn't play the bubble at all. There's some great role players that will allow them to be a great team. And I think they're another team that has a high floor just because of all the talent and still relative depth that they have across all 5 positions. So I think they're going to be a great team again. Like I don't think they finish any lower than probably 3rd in the West. But yeah, I'm concerned about them in the playoffs. I think they have some real weaknesses that could be exposed, especially from both of the LA teams. And that kind of spells a little bit of not complete doom for them, but definitely some worry as relating to the other elite teams in that conference.
I like the way that Monte Morris stepped up in the bubble. I really do. He played very well in the bubble for the Denver Nuggets team. I like the way he played in the bubble. I do. And Gary Harris, I don't know what happened to him. I don't. I'm trying to figure that out. Like, was it the injury? Was it?
I think some of his injuries.
The confidence. I don't know, because Monte Morris played very well in the bubble. He did, and I was getting to that too, Perry. You got R.J. Hampton. They drafted him. He was supposed to be a lottery pick. You remember, he was supposed to be a lottery pick. You got R.J. Hampton. You got Zeke Naji from Arizona.
They also lost Mason Plumlee too. He went to Detroit.
He went to Detroit, and then you got JaMychal Green. He could stretch the floor, and he could also play pretty good defense. So They have pieces there, but will we see teams? Can we see can Jamal Murray average 27, 28 a game? Can he keep up that same energy from the bubble? Can he?
See,
Um,
one thing I'll jump in and say, this is going off Andrew said too. It's like the X's and O's with Denver. I just don't feel like they ever can get like the right group of guys together at the same time. Whether this Jamal Murray is doing his thing, and then Will Barton's out the lineup. Then you got Will Barton and Jamal Murray and Garrett Harris out the lineup. So I just feel like they've never really had a good complement piece. You have MPJ, obviously he missed his first season, get healthy, no rush. And now I've been reading about him, and he was like, I want to step up. And he seemed like he wants to take over the face of the franchise. Jokic looked really good in the bubble. I think something snapped in his psyche that he wants to just be super ultra aggressive in the bubble. If that doesn't carry over to the season, then automatically that makes them drop kind of peg down. And again, going off what Andrew said, they should have almost lost in the first round. They got extremely lucky off just a Clippers team that Paul George just completely wet the bed. I don't really care for Paul George that much, but he doesn't play that bad. You know, that's not happening again, right? So it's true. You're looking at a team that almost overachieved, and they've been kind of in that range where they've been overachieving. Even again, we want them to get so far against Portland, and they couldn't get past Portland. So it's just kind of like I want to see what Coach Malone is going to do, or maybe it's time. Obviously, he just signed another contract. I think they extended him for a couple more years, if I'm not mistaken. But it's like, is he the coach for this team? Is he just like the player coach that, like, same thing with Mark Jackson in Golden State? Mark Jackson was an excellent coach. Maybe he didn't need to get fired. Maybe if they kept him, he would have won too. But is Coach Malone that coach where it's like, hey, we've got this far with you. Maybe we need that next coach to bring or take that intensity from our team to the next stage, you know? So I think they kind of are on that straight edge, not getting any better, not getting worse, just kind of like cruise control.
Let me ask you a question. You bring up a good point, Jerome. When is the last time you guys seen a coach transition like that? They got a team, they had a young team, and they need that other coach to get over the hump. Do you think that was a Golden State thing? Because remember, they had Mark Jackson, and then they were starting to win games with Mark Jackson, and then they made that transition and got Steve Kerr, and then they won championships. I think coaching is a transition too, just like players. You saw with Brandon Ingram. I'll talk about Brandon Ingram a little bit. Brandon Ingram took that next step in New Orleans. He was starting to take that step in LA, but then he took that next step in New Orleans. It's like a transition. Now this is my team in New Orleans. I'll take that next step, that transition. Do you think that happens in coaching as well? Like Mike Malone, okay, we're going to get you Dwayne Casey in Toronto.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing.
You know, we're gonna get. They can only get you so far, but you need that coach to step up and take them over that hump. Now, Nick Nurse was a new coach; he came from the G League and things like that, but he got them over that hump. Is coaching like that as well? You guys think coaching is like that as well? You need that coach to bring the team over the hump.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I see coaching as like there's types of coaches, and some coaches are better for rebuilding teams. Look at what Kenny Atkinson did for the Nets. He was the perfect coach for their situation. On the other hand, Mike D'Antoni, I think he'd be awful for a team that's rebuilding. Like think of him in like Charlotte, or some other team that's rebuilding coming from the bottom. Like I don't think that'd be a good fit. So I think there are coaches that are fit better depending on the situation the team is in, like the degree of their progress. So maybe Mike Malone was that coach to get them back to a competitive point, as to where there's another coach that can come in and be the championship coach. Like I think that definitely exists in coaching. I don't think there's one coach that's going to solve all your problems. But if you can bring in a coach that can address, kind of bridge that gap between where you are and where you need to be for your next phase, that's going to make all the difference when it comes to like where the ultimate goal for your team.
Yeah, I feel that way about Mike Malone. I thought if they lost to the Jazz, I thought, they were probably going to move on from him. He always seemed like he was going to kind of be on that hot seat, if they, digressed a little bit and and just played bad. But they, 3-1 both times in both rounds, and up getting to the Western Conference Finals. So I think that kind of saved his job a little bit. But I just think regular season, they're still a really good regular season team. And I just think from a win standpoint, they're going to be right up there. But yeah, I think if he doesn't get them at least back to the Western Conference Finals, I don't see them going to the finals. But if they if they just continue to improve, and like I said, Michael Porter Jr., if he makes that next step, he has to play big time, because we just talked. They just lost two key forwards, and Grant and Torrey Craig, like you guys talked about. So if he has to step up defensively. He has to be able to guard those wings, not just put up 20. You got to be able to stop the guy from scoring 20 as well.
Yeah, I definitely do think coaching is a transition. I don't know. I think he's the coach. He's the right coach for them. I feel like he has the guys locked in. You can tell that they respect him, and I mean, he obviously led them back from 3-1 twice in the bubble. So I mean, I had to tip my hat to him right there. But I think he's the coach. But although coaching is a transition and it's a situational thing, like you guys mentioned earlier, like you gotta have the right coach for the right situation with Kenny Atkinson and guys like that. Like I thought Luke Walton was a solid coach for our young guys with the Lakers, and our coaching staff now was the right coaching staff to help us get the chip. So I think you guys are right. It definitely is a transition.
Wait, you like Luke Walton as a coach?
With the young guys, I think he was a solid coach. Honestly.
Okay.
If it doesn't work out, I mean, I think we should. I think you might hear Chauncey Billups might be able to get that head coaching spot. Just became an assistant coach, so he's kind of getting his feet wet with that coaching experience. From Denver guy, so played in Denver as well with Melo when they had some success in those mid to late 2000s. So if Mike Malone doesn't improve this team or get them, they're not as dominant, they can move on, and they might potentially look at a guy like Chauncey.
I like Chauncey. I love Chauncey Billups. He's one of those coaches that's real level-headed, very smart, very intelligent basketball player. And you just can tell when point guards are going to be good coaches. I think Rondo would be a great basketball coach. Now, back in the day, Rondo was throwing TVs and things like that, but I think he's past that. I think Rondo is past that. But I think Mike Malone. I think if this year they don't do something, and I don't know what else you can do besides go to Western Conference Finals this year, because I don't think you're going to beat the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. I just don't. What's next? Like what?
They're just on cruise control. There's no real
take it to 7 games. Not a gentleman.
That's competitive pretty much.
Yeah.
That's hard.
That's the one thing.
That's hard. Yeah. Speaking of another team with some young talent, the Minnesota Timberwolves drafted Anthony Edwards number 1 overall. It was talks about them maybe taking LaMelo, maybe them taking Wiseman, but they chose Anthony Edwards, number 1 overall. You got Cat. I think Cat's going to play this season. He's dealing with a lot of personal issues. Prayers to Cat. You got D'Lo there. What can Minnesota bring in the West this year? What do you guys think they can bring in the West?
They just got to build on their young core. I mean, I hope Anthony Edwards is not Andrew Wiggins part 2. So they can build on their young core, and Anthony Edwards is like super, super special, like they say they are, like they say he is. Then shit, they should be straight in the next 2 to 3 years. Not right now, like 2 to 3 years. They should be straight. But this is the start right now. This is the start of the process.
Yeah, they're an interesting team. Being in the Western Conference, you gotta have the guys. They have some nice young guys. Jared Culver, they drafted the year before. We'll see what he does. Josh Okogie as well. Solid. They have some good guys on the team. I don't know if Ryan Saunders is that. He looks to be kind of like we talked about with Mike Malone, kind of being that step that coach, maybe not to take them to a championship, but kind of develop them. And if they get the right guy, then they could potentially make some moves. But that only comes down to what Cat wants to do. We'll see what happens. Maybe because we saw KG. He stayed with the Timberwolves for about 10, 13 years until he was just like it was time for him to move on and try to contend for a championship. So it just depends on what what's his morale after a year or two playing with D'Lo? I like the combination. Edwards is going to have to be an impact player from the jump. I like the starting lineup looks good. They're in a tough division. I think every team. I think every team in the division last year, except them, were in the playoffs. So they're gonna struggle. They're gonna have some battles, even with OKC. Not having the same exact roster. They're still gonna be a really good team. They're still gonna be a good team, young team that they have to go up against. So they have some good players. Cat has to. I think he has to step up defensively as well, being that anchor in the middle, being a two-way guy. He's an excellent shooter, one of the best shooting bigs, one of the best shooters in the NBA. He's really developed his game out of Kentucky. So D'Lo has to take that next step as being a top. I mean, to me he's a top 10 point guard already. But if they want to have supreme success and make the playoffs, he has to put himself in that top 5 category, at least play like it, and get better. And improve defensively as well. I think both of those guys, they're great offensively. They can get you a bucket, but in the West, you got to be able to defend guys. You can't have lapses. Everybody's good. Everybody's good. Even on a bad team, they got some good guys, and this is really what this team is. So if they want to make some noise and be heard, they have to defend and make some plays on both ends of the court.
And there's one exception though, CJ, to being a good offensive team, a bad defensive team. The Dallas Mavericks from last season were not a great defensive team, but they were like literally one of the best offensive teams, if not the best offensive team in NBA history. So that might be the exception to the rule, just because like they're better than everybody else. But yeah, in general, yeah, you're right. Like you have to have some kind of defensive identity. Like I predict them as being a bottom 10 defense. And maybe they can get to average or something like that offensively, which is not even close to going to be able to get it done. Like they have some great talents on that team. But overall, like I just look at the roster and nothing about them really screams to me like impressive or riveting or anything like that. Like I think D'Lo and Cat as a tandem is going to be fun because they didn't get a lot of time last season. I think Cat had like a wrist injury and he missed like the rest of the season right after they got D'Lo. But overall, it's just kind of meh. Even going to the new pickup, like I think about what Edwards might bring to the table. I'm not totally convinced he's going to be like the guy. Like I think he's going to be a good scorer. He's going to be solid, but I don't know. Like still question marks, and I'm not convinced that Cat is really going to be that defensive anchor for them. I don't think that's really a part of his game. So, yeah, I'm just worried about the Timberwolves, and I think they'll be good. They'll have some fun moments, but I would say they end up as like the 12th, 13th seed in the West, to be honest. I don't see – they might be better than Sacramento and OKC, but after that, it's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. They're just out there,
Will Anthony Edwards be their third best player?
He's gonna have to.
He has to be. I mean,
he almost has to be their second. I think he has to be better than
he might have to be better than D'Lo. Yeah. If they want to really want to make noise in the Western Conference, he might have to be a better player than not obviously not right now, but to show some type of promise and impact early on. If they want to make some noise, I mean, they're a really good 2K team. I'll tell you that. I mean, if you want to, rebuild the franchise, they got some guys, but.
You guys in your 2K, I swear.
They have players at every level. They have a wing as long as Anthony Edwards can, be what we think our number one pick should be. Cat, as long as he's motivated, like you said, also he's had a really tough, long offseason. Prayers out to him and his family, but he's gonna have to dial in and channel that energy almost into be like, hey, I went through all this turbulence throughout the offseason, a lot of death, obviously. But if I can channel that into this being the best basketball player I can be for my family and going forward, then you have a really good big who's gonna buy in, and that's gonna force everybody else to buy in. Ricky Rubio's gonna be there. Obviously, they picked him back up, so hopefully he can be that sounding veteran voice for them. We don't know what's going on with Malik Beasley. I don't know what.
Oh man.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
I don't know.
God. As soon as he
Yeah.
gets paid, he goes off the rails. That
Yeah.
ain't good.
So he's probably let's just assume that he's gonna miss a significant amount of the season, whether it goes to he's guilty or not. I'm sure the league's gonna have to do some suspending, so that's gonna be its own topic. But like you said, Josh Okogie's there. They have some good defenders. Jarek Culver, he had a solid ending to his rookie year. I want to say, can he make the step up to a respectable role player or fringe starter, sixth man maybe? But they got some pieces. Hopefully, obviously they're not going to do anything amazing, but hopefully they still remain competitive enough where they can fill the seats up if fans are there, or at least we want to check them out or at least talk about them. As long as they're relevant, they're doing something.
I have a question. Do you guys think they missed out on LaMelo Ball because he's box office?
Not really.
I think it was the right fit. It wasn't a good fit to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I
because
thought they should have drafted him not because he was box office, but I thought it would have been a solid fit. It would have allowed D'Angelo to be off the ball a little bit more, and him to attack and kick it out to D'Angelo and have D'Angelo play off the ball. So I thought it was actually a solid fit.
okay, because there's mixed reviews about that. People are like, "Well, he's working out with the Timberwolves because the top 5 guys only work out for certain teams because you're probably going to go top 5. There were some surprises in the draft, but
Yeah.
they only work out for certain teams. So that's why I say that, because they would have taken him number 1. You move D'Lo off the ball, and you got Cat there. We know LaMelo doesn't like to play defense.
Yeah, who would have been that guy out of that backcourt to lock up? Because you look at if you want to compare, if you want to obviously they're not on the level as like Clay and Steph, but if you want to look at it from that standpoint as having a high offensive power backcourt, like Clay locks up as well. So it's like, who would have been that guy to
like Dame and CJ route?
Right, it could be like a Dame CJ, but I just mean top backcourt. Who would have been that guy?
It's me, the Minnesota. I don't think they have a TV game this year. I sent you guys a screenshot of the TV games this year. I don't think they have.
And that's crazy. When last time we seen enough one primetime games? Not even one, because I think they had Pelicans on opening night.
Yeah,
so that's the Zion effect. Yeah,
this is all Zion.
That's what we did in Anthony Edwards compared to Zion.
Oh yeah.
This draft is a developmental draft, and I'll say that, and I'll die on that hill. I think it's going to take a couple of years to even see progress in this draft. It just is. There are some guys that got drafted to some good situations. I know that Dwayne Casey came out and said that Killian Hayes is going to be starting point guard in Detroit, starting training camp.
That.
So that in that situation, that is when you look at Killian Hayes, it's like, okay, I'm in Detroit. It's just me. You got Blake Griffin, you got Derrick Rose, but you got Jerry Grant there now. But it's like, it's me. Like I wouldn't say that's not a bad situation for that young guard, a young French guard to go to. I don't think so, because it's him. So we'll see about that. Another young team. Oh boy. Now, if you ask me how many transitions Oklahoma City Thunder made, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you.
How many picks do y'all got now? Like 35?
Yeah.
There are so many picks transition. Every time I looked up on my Twitter timeline, I'm getting a notification about what the Thunder did. I'm like, I can't keep up. I can't pronounce their names. I'm working on my phonetics, guys. Just bear with me. I'm trying to figure out who's on the roster. I don't know who's on the roster, who they traded, what pick they got for this, cash considerations. I don't know. So I'll just say that I had to get my little rant out about Oklahoma City Thunder because Trevor Ariza is going to miss the beginning of the season. He already said. I don't know half the guys on these roster, guys. I just don't. And that's not good because I've,
Lou Dort.
I know Lou Dort.
Dort.
I know the guys that have been there, but we got Josh Hall.
I don't think you guys have Trevor Ariza. I think he's on Houston.
No, he got traded. He got
traded from Houston.
He got traded.
Oh, he got
Trade
flipped from Houston?
Yeah,
He got
Yeah.
he got moved around.
Yeah, he was,
Yeah, he been
Wait, so
been on the
Houston,
move.
wait. Who did Houston? I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Who did Houston trade him for?
I think just the bit like a big or the cap
Okay. Yeah,
situation.
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot that happened, Taylor. You know what?
Yes.
You got to go
This
along.
is proves her point. It's just like I don't know who's who, where he is, what's going on.
It's really crazy. But they came out and said that he's going to miss, I think, some time in the season. Yeah. So OKC has a brand new roster. The only person that's on there from last year's team, the only people that are on there from last year's team are Deontay Burton. They said they're not going to extend him. They got Darius Baisley, Hamidou Diallo, got Dort, got SGA, Kevin Hervey. He played very little. Go down. Mike Muscala, they got him. And that's it from last year's roster.
Dang.
So OKC's in a complete transition, U-Haul, whatever you want to call it. He got a whole bunch of picks. I'm happy for Preston. He got a whole bunch of picks. How are we going to use them? I'm surprised they drafted Poku. I really, really am. Let me just say that. I wanted to keep Oubre, but he went on Golden State. Ricky Rubio, we got Oubre and Rubio in that trade for Chris Paul. I knew Chris Paul was going to go. I knew we were going to clean house. Let me just say that I knew OKC was going to clean house. I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce the head coach's first and last name. Well, last name. Bear with me. But with that being said, can OKC? I'm going to ask you guys. Can OKC surprise people like they did last year? Not as big as a surprise. But can they win more games than what people think they can win?
How many games? What's the Vegas siege?
What's Vegas? I don't know what Vegas is. I haven't looked because I'm scared to look.
Oh man,
I'm not sure, but I don't think so. I don't think so.
Oh, they still either.
I think they have some nice young pieces, like you said, SGA. I think Baisley. I like Baisley a lot. He's a solid wing. Should make that next step. I don't think they're going to just say we're flat out tanking, but that's kind of what they're saying with all the moves they've made. I would, and because of that, I would definitely try to use the, like 600 picks you guys have, and try to get some picks for this next draft class. I think this next draft class is really good. It's really deep. Has a lot of quality guys from 1 to 14, maybe get a guy like Evan Mobley, kind of replace Steven Adams, a guy from USC, really good big, Terrence Clark, somebody like that. So I think that should be the direction. SGA continue to improve. Obviously they're giving him the keys, even though the team isn't that great right now, but they're giving him the keys to be that guy and show, he's the best guy on the team. Like I said, Baisley should take that step. It's going to be it's definitely a rebuilding year. But I just think it'll just be 1 year for OKC. Knowing Sam Presti, I think it's a reset. I don't think it's a rebuild. I'll say it's a reset. I don't think it'll be multiple years until we'll see them as a playoff contender. I think it may be this year and maybe next year if they get a quality guy in that draft. But I think Presti has to use some of those picks for something, because obviously OKC is not a big time market for free agents to go to. So it just makes the most sense, like you guys did before when you drafted KD, got Westbrook, got Harden. I think that needs to be the direction now. Develop, get some homegrown guys. Sam Presti coming from that San Antonio area. You see exactly what they did. I think he's going to do that again now and reset that. Try to make another big three, and hopefully out of these draft picks, get a really good guy and start this thing over again and try to make some noise. So they won't be that. Getting Chris Paul, nobody, like you said, nobody expected them to be the 5th seed in the Western Conference last year. Nobody expected that. They played well, they played hard for those guys. But with the new coach and with the young player and SGA still developing, still continuing to improve, I like his game a lot. And if once they figure some things out and get the quality, get that roster together, I think they're going to be good for a few years down the line. But I think this year, they're definitely going to take a step back.
Here's the odds, guys. 100 to 1.
No.
To go to what? Like
that the final?
No. Oh yeah, this is the odds to win the Western Conference Finals. The Sacramento Kings have the same odds we do, but we're above Sacramento because of the lettering. Yeah, 100 130-1 to win our division. Oof, oof.
Oh yeah,
So that
it's
just
cool in the
tells you what
South.
but Vegas, but ESPN picked the Thunder to finish what 12th or 13th last season in the West, and they could have finished fourth. They're actually tied for what Houston had that.
But that because we thought Chris Paul was gonna leave.
And we thought he
Yeah,
was. Well, a lot of people thought he was done.
I thought he would. Yeah, a lot of people thought he was done, and he went plant based and became. I think he
Plant
finished. Yeah, he went plant based. He talked about it. He said, "I went plant based," and he became. I think he finished fifth or sixth in the MVP voting or something like that. He finished.
I love
Yeah.
me some Chris Paul.
Yeah, and so people thought he was finished, and then boom, and then SGA took their next step, and Gallo played well, and Schroeder played well, and Adams played well, and we're like, oh, now OKC didn't have a bench, but other than that, those young guys play well. Baisley started to come into his own a little bit. Now this season, I'm not sure, guys. I'm not sure. I'll be watching every game. Okay, guys, I'll be watching every game, but it's going to be very frustrating to watch because they're young. But I have to trust the process. I know it sounds like Joel Embiid. I have to trust the process. Just think. Just say we finish at the bottom of the. We are gonna. Well, I'm not gonna say that because I said that last year and look what happened. Just say if OKC finished the bottom at the West. Just think of the draft picks. the
Well,
draft picks they
how
could.
much of the own draft? Like how much of the draft picks are actually theirs?
Let's look at that. It's a lot of them. It's a lot to. I think I took a picture of it because it was so much, and it's so much that I have lost. Even OKC insiders was like,
There's
I
a
don't
lot of
know.
there's a lot of just technicalities to these picks too.
Yeah, there are. So I'm gonna look at those. I really don't know how to feel about the future of OKC because you have to draft well. You can have all those draft picks and not draft well.
But they
And
gotta get a star because you draft
yeah,
well, or you have to draft perfect. You're like, first of all, you're not having another Harden, Westbrook, Durant draft streak.
oof,
That's not happening. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
you have to draft essentially perfectly to be respectable in the Western Conference, where you're seeing the bottom teams. The Kings, Luke Walton needs to go as a coach, but the Kings should be a bit better. Who else in the bottom? Memphis is going to be a bit better.
Hmm.
OKC needs to, get a star, flip some of those picks, or draft perfectly to be relevant, because, or else it's gonna have a bunch of.
Uh-oh.
Needs to
Jerome,
draft really smart.
Jerome P, what you said? You froze up.
No, I'm saying they need to draft really smart because, or else they're gonna have a bunch of role players. They're gonna have number 8 picks to sit on the bench. Number 14 picks that are start off in the G League because they're gonna have 45 picks with no roster spots. So they're going to have to flip, and then they're gonna have to convince whoever they flip to stay, and they're gonna have to prove that they can draft effectively with the rest of the picks that they have. So it's gonna be a lot. They're gonna have to get who's the coach now? Who did they pick up as a coach?
What is
Oh,
his
I can't
name?
remember his name.
Juggernaut.
I cannot remember his name.
Juggernaut.
Right. So when the star comes, they're gonna have to give that superstar treatment like never before. It's gonna be a lot, I think, for OKC to become that like in that tier. But you gotta fight to be relevant. You gotta draft really well. So I hope the best for you personally, Amber. It sucks because
Man said, good luck.
you almost can't rebuild in the West. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
if you start to rebuild, you're gonna be rebuilding for a very long time.
You
Here's the
gotta get the
picks,
right
guys.
call. You gotta get the right guys, like you said.
Yeah.
Here are the picks. I'm gonna run these down to you. All right. So 2021, we got protection 1 through 30 with Houston 5 through 30. 2021, Miami protection 1 through 30 with Houston 5 through 30. 2022, 1 through 14. 2022, LA Clippers, we got 1 through 30. 2022, Phoenix, 1 through 12. 2023, 1 through 30. 2023 with Miami, 15 through 30. 2024, OKC, 1 through 30. 2024, Clippers, 1 through 30. 2024, Houston, 5 through 30. 2025, 1 through 30. with the Clippers are Houston 5 through 30. 2025 with Philly 1 through 6. 2026 it's ours 1 through 30. 2026 Clippers 1 through 30. 2026 with Houston 5 through 30. So
I kind of lost track myself. I'm like,
you see, you see
Yeah.
what I'm going through? You see what I'm going through?
So
All I
you
know
gotta
is
you gotta
we're gonna
flip
be
those guys, man. Try
yeah.
to get at least one or two of these guys in next year's draft, man. I
If
feel like
OKC doesn't come out of this with a championship, almost I want to say, or a finals berth, some all stars,
Yeah,
that team is gonna be. That's gonna be bad.
All
yeah. And
right. So
OKC is a small market too, so it's hard
yeah,
to get players to come play here.
I mean,
yeah.
they're setting
Let's-
themselves up though.
Yeah,
That's the thing. That's the thing.
That's
It's
true.
almost like you have to.
Yeah, like to keep it real, like this season's probably going to be a disaster. Sorry, Amber, just to like, just plainly, like
fine.
it's
okay.
probably going to be rough. Like you might finish 15th. Like I'm just going to put it out there because that whole starting lineup outside of SGA is gone. Like they dumped everyone. So clearly, there's an emphasis on ranking high in that 21 draft. You want to get a great pick. You want to be one of the worst teams. But I will say this: you have Sam Presti. You have a lot of picks. You already have I would say a borderline all-star player in SGA. This season he might put up 25-5. Like, he might be one of those emerging new players. So you have a slight foundation there. There's someone to build off of. And then I don't think it's going to take until 2024 to get to a place of being competent and relevant again. I think it'll take 2 years, 3 years, but that's not an eternity for a team that just tore everything to the ground. I don't think a few years is terrible. Like you look at the Sixers, they endured quite a bit of time just being awful. So OKC is a great franchise. They have a great general manager. He's very savvy. So to some of your guys' point, you talked about all those picks. I think by the time they get to the point where it's like you have too many picks and you're dealing with not having roster spots, I think they'll be competitive enough to flip those picks for a player like, a tier 1 or 2 player. You think about what the Rockets did to get James Harden. Like they had those picks and they had solid players that they got with some picks from years prior that they flipped for a guy like Harden. I expect OKC to do the same before too long, using picks and players. This is what it's all about. It's not just drafting for the next 6 years in the first round and getting a guy. It's about getting the assets. So when a disgruntled star that we're seeing more of in today's NBA because guys are signing short contracts and the timelines are shorter and stuff, there will be opportunities. And OKC is going to be in prime position to snag one of those guys and they'll be on their way again.
I think I'm positive because I trust Sam Presti. I'm positive, but I did not like what they did with Harden, the Harden situation. I didn't like that at all. But
it was rough.
yeah, I had to get over that very quickly. And I mean very quickly. And I mean quickly. And I've learned that the NBA is a business. The older I'm getting, the more I'm realizing that the NBA is a business. Right? So you don't want to pay Harden $4 million and he wants to go to Houston with no state tax. I'm not going to tell Harden not to do that. You got all the strippers in the world in Houston. You're having fun. The rappers are in Houston. OKC is not a very desirable place for an NBA player to live when you're that young. And all that. Yeah, it's not
flashy at all.
At all. It's
need a guy like Westbrook that like just
chill.
Loves. Yeah, you gotta have a guy like the mindset of Westbrook. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna just go hard every single. Doesn't matter where I'm at. Appreciate the city. If they love me, I'm gonna love them back. That's what you guys need again. Hopefully it's SGA.
Yeah, hopefully so. I think SGA is coming to his own. Him and Baisley. What'd you say, Jerome?
Nah, he's Canadian. He's chilling.
Yeah, he have to chill here. You know what I mean? I've been here all my life. You have to chill here. It's really not much. It's really not much.
You have no choice.
You really have no choice. And the head coach's name is Mark Dagenot. I'm working on a phonetics.
If he ends up being a legit coach, we will know exactly what his name is.
We'll pronounce it the right way. Facts.
I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce his name before I get on my podcast. But Speaking of teams and who've done well in the offseason, let's go to Portland. I like what Portland did in the offseason. I did, and I do. It's just so beautiful to watch an organization have a loyal star in Damian Lillard, right? He's loyal. You don't get that a lot. You really don't. You honestly don't get that a lot. And they're honestly trying to put pieces around him for him to be successful. I can say that, but we have a but. Can they stay healthy? Can Portland stay healthy? What do you guys think?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I like Portland a lot. I feel like they outside of the Lakers, probably I feel like they have one of the best off seasons in the NBA. You know, they got the wing players that you need in the Western Conference, especially going up against guys like LeBron, AD, Paul George, Kawhi. You got Rodney Hood should be coming back off the Achilles. Hopefully he's 100% healthy. Getting Robert Covington was an excellent pickup. A guy that could guard 1 through 4. You know, knock down threes. Really good 3 and D player. Re-signing Melo. I think Melo understanding his role now. Understand he's not that superstar guy anymore. He's gonna come off the bench. He's accepted that. He could still be able to still get vintage Melo coming off the bench. He's gonna get his post touches. Still gonna be that guy. CJ and Dame they definitely give him the rock and understand how impactful he is on that block. So he's still gonna get his looks here and there. You got Cantor back. Cantor had a really solid season with the Trailblazers 2 years ago. So that was a good pickup as well. Zach Collins should be back from the injury from the I think it was the shoulder or might have been the ankle. I think it might have been the ankle injury
in the bubble.
In the bubble, yeah. So he should be back. He showed some promise, able to knock down the shot, be a solid stretch forward for them. Nurkic has to take another step and being honestly, I feel like he has to be maybe the second option, being that second best guy. If they really want to make some noise and challenge the Lakers, I think they have all the pieces to definitely go to the Western Conference Finals if they stay healthy, like you talked about. They have the wings. They have a really good big. If Nurkic can just continue to improve defensively, if he's going to be out there, he's going to have to be able to, he doesn't have to be a leaper, but just be fundamentally sound, get to the right spots, play vertical, put his hands up, use his length to make some plays. If he could do that, they're going to be really good. And the reason why Dame is loyal is because, again, like we've been talking about this entire episode, is if the front office is making moves and aggressive, that speaks volumes to star players, and that's what they've done. They've been a 3 seed. They've been a 3 seed for a couple years, and they kind of step back because of injuries. But they always play well. Defensively, they have to step up because offensively they were great last year, and then defensively they were bottom of the league. So if they could just at least get to the middle of the pack in the NBA defensively, they could definitely be be in the Western Conference Finals and challenge LA or the Lakers, I should say, not.
Not
Hey, nobody's high on the Clippers, huh? Nobody really cares about the Clippers, huh?
Yeah. Now, I like Portland's move. One thing I say, like when I first seen the move, and I had to I was looking at it now, of course, I was like, maybe I should pump the brakes a little bit. I'm a big fan of Derrick Jones Jr. I think that Miami didn't really use him in the finals. It was almost like if that's going to be a starting wing who pretty much was unplayable or just didn't get playing time in the finals, how much is that actually helpful in the division, in the conference where they're getting, again, like some of the top wings in the league? I like Covington should be fine. Again, better shooter than Melo. Sit in the corners, can play defense, can rebound. He's a really good all-around player, if you ask me. He can't create, but for his purpose, he's really good. I think the pickup that is really going to benefit them in the long term is Harry Giles. I think the Kings let him go way too easily. Obviously, he was a lottery pick. Out of high school, he was super, super nasty. Obviously, he had the injuries, but I think that's a steal because he didn't get paid much, I don't think. So I think that's going to be a player that is going to be almost an X factor. And again, Dame is going to have to be Dame. We'll know him CJ, I don't know what I'm expecting from CJ for them to be competitive. I feel like what you said, CJ, with Nurkic having to be the second player. I think Nurkic is gonna have to be the second player. CJ's gonna have to do some deferring, and it's gonna be Dame, Nurkic, and the rest of them. I think if that happens, then you can see them maybe reach out and be maxed out with that mentality. Because I think the Dame CJ, we've seen that doesn't work. We're over it. So if Nurkic can stay healthy, obviously he didn't start last season healthy. If he can stay healthy this season with Dame, with the pieces, and everybody's 100% buying in, that makes them to be an interesting roster. Because obviously last year they finished 8th. We think a healthy Portland team would have done a bit better than that, right?
Yeah.
So if they can stay healthy, if they can, buy into that Nurkic, Dame, and everybody else kind of just spread out and shoot and hit shots and step up when necessary, then you see them might make some noise. But other than that, to me, I think it's almost the same old Portland. Terry Stotts gonna have to step up his game as an X's and O's coach. So it's gonna be one of those teams where are you gonna stay at the bottom and dogfight your way to essentially a Lakers or Clippers elimination, or are you gonna contend and be in that middle of the pack and try to make some noise as a 4, 5, and 6 seed?
Yeah, I was very impressed with their offseason as well. And going back to Jared Jones Jr., I think a big reason why he kind of got squeezed out of the rotation in Miami was because he didn't offer playmaking or shooting at the level that Miami needed when they got to the later rounds against Boston and the Lakers. As where Iguodala had the playmaking, he had some shooting from the corners, and then Jay Crowder had some moments of being a flamethrower shooter, and he was still a good defender. So now going to Portland, though, I think Derek Jones finds himself in a situation where it's like they have all the shooting in the world. Like the other 4 starters are going to be great shooters. Like even Nurkic can shoot from downtown. So they don't really need that from him. They do need some defense, though. CJ, you just talked about that earlier. They need to improve on that end. That's always been an Achilles heel for them. So Derek Jones offers the versatility that they're looking for, that they need. The explosiveness is really going to be valued on the front line. He's just going to be a perfect fit for them. Just energy. They're doing the little things. Like they have offensive output. They have talent. They just needed guys to be able to go and plug in and be Swiss Army knives, to be utility players. That's what's going to make the difference for them. And then I will say, I don't quite think this is the Portland we've seen the past few years because of one guy. Gary Trent Jr. really exploded in the bubble. Forgot about him for a moment, but like he's a legitimate guy. Like he is a 3-and-D guy. Like Portland hasn't had another guy like him next to Dame and CJ. I don't think at any point in their tenure. So he's going to be a huge difference maker for them. Shoot 37, 38%, lock up some of those nice guards in the league, and maybe even some threes. He's very versatile. You can plug him in with Dame and CJ, maybe in the smaller lineup. They're going to have a lot of options, and that's a beautiful thing for a team that's looking to make a deep playoff run. If you have depth, if you have versatility, that's going to make a world of difference for you. So I see Portland as being one of those top teams in the West, and dark horse to make a deep run because they have what they've been looking for next to Dame and CJ for a long time. And Nurkic is going to be that dude again, with his playmaking and shooting from the center position that's very rare and very valuable.
Yeah, I think Rocco is a scary pickup. I think that pickup they got with Rocco, I think that's going to be scary. Go ahead, Caleb.
Rocco, you gotta put me back. Who's Rocco?
Robert Covington.
Oh, Robert Covington. Yeah, that was a great pickup. That was a great pickup.
I call him.
I just didn't hear that abbreviation. I'm on game now. But I think that was a great pickup. They have the pieces next to him, but I don't know. I feel like they're stuck. They're just stuck in the middle of the pack. They're gonna have to make a decision pretty soon because you gotta be honest with yourself. Can they get it done? In the West, we got LeBron locked up for 4 or 5 more years down here. I don't think they could get it done. We're better seeing Dame and CJ somewhere else on a contending team. I mean, there's the 2 guys that could get shipped to a contending team. So I think Portland's gonna have to make a choice. Although they do have a lot of pieces, I don't think it's enough to win.
Ooh, Amber.
You like that roster? Oh, yeah.
I got a question for Amber. Amber, let's talk some business here.
Okay, let's talk business.
OKC has 46,000 draft picks. right? How would you like to see Dame in OKC? He likes a small market. He's loyal. You know?
Oh
Is
no.
the connection good?
Not bad.
Are you there,
Yeah,
Amber?
my connection.
Okay.
Yeah. It's,
Okay.
you're good now. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
good. You're good.
Okay. You know what, Jerome? I'm a huge Damian Lillard fan, but he's so loyal to Oakland. I mean, not to Oakland. Well, to Oakland, yeah, but to Portland. I don't. I think when you have that status, you kind of dictate where you want to go. You know what I mean? Like if they traded him, he would not want to come to Oklahoma City. And I say that
No.
nicely because I'm from here, but it's just not desirable. I think Chris Paul, when he got traded here, he played here when Hurricane Katrina happened. He was here. So it was like, okay, I've already been to OKC. Like I already know. You know what I mean? That's hard. I would love Dame here or CJ, whichever one. I just don't think that Portland's going to give Dame up. I don't see that happening. I think it's a Tim Duncan situation like he had in San Antonio. Tim Duncan was
winning, and that's what Caleb says. Like and I said it before. Like at some point, like we see Melo go outside as a Knick when he was. Sorry, my bad.
Good, bro. Good. Go ahead, bro.
When he was loyal Knick, I want to be a Knick. He stayed there. He rode them till they rode him out of town. Like, obviously, I don't think Portland's ever going to ride Dame out of town. Don't get me wrong. But at some point, this Dame going to be like, you know what? I seen AD leave the Pelicans and go to a bigger market and win. Maybe I don't have to go there. But if I can pair up, the Clippers are there. Are the Clippers a big market team? No. Are they because they're in LA? You can argue that. But to me, they're a small market team, right?
They getting a new arena in Inglewood though in a couple of years. So.
Farmer got a lot of cash, man.
Yeah, he got a lot of cash, man.
Don't you see that bad for real? I never been, so I don't know.
It's just nothing to do here. Like I'm an introvert. I stay at home a lot, but I'm gonna honestly tell you that I don't think Oklahoma City will ever have an All-Star game because it's just not enough to do.
Yeah, probably.
That's just not enough to do, and I'm saying that in a good way. I don't want to bash my city, but I'm just being completely honest.
Yeah, for sure. I just didn't.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's got nothing to do here.
Yeah.
So
which roster do you guys like? Dallas or Portland?
Portland.
Ooh, that's a great question. That's a great question.
Because Dallas can't stop nobody. I mean, they can score a lot of points.
Josh Richardson was a solid.
Yeah,
Josh's gonna help.
Josh's gonna help. It's gonna help. It's gonna help.
But KP is not
on the middle. In the middle, yeah, they're gonna struggle.
Yeah, KP's not healthy. So
yeah, I'm off of that bandwagon.
So quickly.
I was a big KP fan, but now he can't. As a big, you can't stay healthy. He tore his ACL. Yeah. It's gonna be a neat thing for the rest of his career. It's just how much can he manage it? How much can he pay? Can he play through pain? Is it gonna be an over a lifespan type of injury where it's gonna have chronic knee pain? How much is he going to want to endure that? I don't see KP. What's he now? Maybe 20. Let's just say he's 26, 27. He's not playing for another 5-6 years. I don't see it.
It is a risk. It is possible because there's a developing trend with him. He came back from a major injury and he looked good. But if there's things are continuing to happen, it's almost like these injuries are a result of him maybe like overcompensating. We see this all the time. Like you have a knee injury. Amber, I'm sure you can speak to this. You've been down this road before. It's like you have an injury, you tend to want to lean on maybe the other knee or the other foot or something like that, and then that starts to break down. And it's just a whole kind of domino effect once you have something like that happen. So there are definitely questions, but I wanted to make a point on Damian Lillard real quick, and I don't think he's ever going to leave because he's made it public, at least not by his own will. Because I've heard him say that, he does not care about teaming up with other stars or going to a big market. He's put that publicly before. And then also winning a championship, he wants to win. Like he's fully committed to winning a championship. But he has said before, and I've seen on like social media, like someone asked him, like, what if you don't win a championship? What if you don't get there? What if you end up being like Karl Malone and like Steve Nash that never won a championship? He basically said it is what it like. He didn't literally say it is what it is, but that's essentially what his message was. He's just like, that's the way it happens. That's the way it happens. But he has certain values and certain principles that he won't break or won't deviate from to win a championship or to form a super team. He's not with that. It's just not who he is. And it is a rare thing, and it's refreshing because you don't see that very often.
Yeah, I think he might
that
have
there,
that. Yeah.
excuse me, my
That's,
bad, Amber. And
oh,
that
okay.
there is why he's one of my favorite point guards, bro. He would not cross at all. He's one of my favorite point guards just
I love
because
that
of
dude.
exactly
Yeah.
what you said right there. He's willing to go. I mean, no NBA player is gonna do that in today's age.
Yeah,
No,
he's one of a kind. He's my favorite active player. He's my favorite
yeah.
active player. I love that dude.
And the
He's a
thing
dog.
about it,
Legit.
and
Yeah.
the thing about it is we had on my podcast, Step Back Sisters, we had a Portland insider come talk about can you win with Dame and CJ? And he said it's not necessarily can you win with Dame and CJ, it's can you win with Dame because he is that alpha. He's that guy that's going to lead you. CJ does hit big shots, and when Dame is struggling or whatever, but Dame is ultimately that guy that Portland goes to. Him and Nurkic in that pick and roll is going to be so crucial this season. So crucial this season. And I'm eager to see how many minutes Melo gets. Can Collins stay healthy? He's a little fragile. He needs to put on a little weight, but
He is
can
on fire.
Collins?
He had a good year though. He had a good
Yeah.
year last year.
I think that closing lineup, whatever their closing lineup is going to be,
That's
is
going to be
going
interesting.
to be. It's probably just going to be by who has the hotter hand in the
Yep.
game. But they have so many guys. It's just like
Rodney Hood.
yeah, Rodney
Yeah.
Hood coming back. He was a bucket. He was big time for them 2 years ago in that series against the Nuggets. So
What if they went to Dame, CJ, Gary, Trent, Rocco, and Nurkic? I know it's going to depend on the game, but something like that. Because Nurkic can shoot, Nurkic can pass, Rocco could do the little things. Gary can defend, he can shoot. The other two guys, like, I would love to see that one. I think they might start with that and then see where it goes from there.
yeah,
You
that
know,
sounds solid to me.
Solid.
Yeah, but Rocco has to be in the closing lineup just with his
Yeah.
versatility. Dame and CJ, I think that three is that small forward position. Whoever's playing well could be Melo one night, could be Derek Jones Jr. So, but yeah, I think
For sure.
that's ideal.
you know what I think? I kind of think sometimes he said Dub Nation. Okay. I think I don't know if that closing lineup, if those guards are too small. You think those guards are too small, in your opinion?
With Trent at the three, I mean he's 6'5". I mean he's 6'5",
Yeah, but the
6'6".
threes are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" now these days. That's what I'm
True.
saying. Do you think that those three guards are too small in that closing lineup? Do you think? I'm just thinking. I'm trying to just think about matchups with closing lineups in the NBA around the NBA.
It depends
Maybe.
what team they're facing. If they're facing
Yeah.
like the Lakers, they're definitely a liability.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But, I mean, other than that, I mean the Lakers and the Mavericks, I would say. But other than that, like they could go toe to toe anybody.
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
Agreed.
I just sometimes height bothers me, and I don't know why it does, and it probably shouldn't. When we was talking to the Blazers insider, he said the height shouldn't really bother you as much as you think it should. And I'm like, yeah, but the wings are getting like bigger. Like KD is like a 6'10" shooting guard. I mean, you know what I mean? Like the way he shoots the ball, it's just
But
they're becoming more athletic. It's just but those little guys can get buckets too. The little guys can get buckets too. So we'll see what happens with Portland. Now, this team, the last team we're going to talk about in the Northwest Division in the West, Utah Jazz. They surprised some people. They probably surprised some people. Can Mike Conley stay healthy? What can Mitchell bring? He just got his money. Rudy Gobert. Will he ever get an offensive package? So, how do you guys feel about Utah?
they're burnt. They're pretty much burnt too. They're in a stuck place too. Mike Conley, I think he was a hot move last year. I don't know how he's gonna fit this year. Maybe he might be able to fit. He might not. They definitely have the 3-point shooters with Ingles and I can't say his name. Bovan.
Bogdanovich.
Bogdanovich.
Yeah, they definitely got the shooters around him. They brought Black Clarkson, so that was solid. But I just don't think they have enough to get it done in the Western Conference. Maybe if they could
Me either.
package Gobert up and Conley up and go get somebody, that would be cool. But nobody's really available. I mean, besides Harden. So Conley and Gobert for Harden, best shot at it. But I mean, they need somebody else. I don't think they can get it done with what they have. They're stuck.
Yo, if I was the Jazz front office, I would be talking to the league right now because if you want to qualify for Supermax currently, you have to be like All NBA or Defensive Player of the Year. I would be campaigning for them to take off Defensive Player of the Year because then you end up with a situation like Gobert where it's like he is a great player and great defensive player, but I'm like he is not the type of guy you want to pay $190 million plus to. Year in and year out because he has offensive limitations. I think he can be schemed out of a playoff series. Like, I don't know if you can go all the way and win a championship with him. He's more of an old school center, anchor in the paint, can't really move his feet, can only really go catch lobs and do simple moves. So I'm just like, that's tough for them. And if you don't give him a super max, like, does he want to stay? That creates a whole nother issue for them. So I'm like, yeah, they got Donovan, but other than that, yeah, I'm with you, Caleb. They're kind of stuck, and it's really unfortunate. I mean, their cap sheet is kind of tied up now with all this money. I mean, yeah, Conley can move on next year, but I mean, like, yeah, it's just I would not want to be in that position that they're in right now, where it's like they're gonna be a solid team again for sure. First, second round, that's about it. Like, what else can you do for a team like that? But last point though, like last season they were a really good offensive team and not the best defensive team, which is like a departure from the norm for them. And an article I read said they had overcompensated by trying to fix the offensive issues they had the year before, and now this year they had defensive issues because I know you all remember when they were playing Denver, they couldn't stop anybody. Like they couldn't stop Jamal, they couldn't stop anybody. So now they're trying to find that balance, and I don't know if they ever will find that balance. It's either too much offense or too much defense. So they're just kind of stuck right now, for sure.
Yeah, they're going to be one of those teams where they're going to have to make a trade before the trade deadline, get a quality player, try to make some noise, and try to make a deep playoff run. But, their cap is really possibly a second round, most likely first round. For Gobert, even though he is a traditional center, run the floor, block shots, he could still be more energetic offensively, get some more offensive rebounds, get some putbacks. With the amount of possessions that's in the NBA today, he should be able to put up at least 20 points. I mean, 5 lobs, that's 10 right there. And then you just look at, if he's just more energetic off the boards, off the glass, dunking on people. He doesn't need a real offensive package. It doesn't need to be like Tim Duncan. But if he just adds maybe just a couple things, maybe it's a baby hook shot. Look at a guy like Steven Adams. Just have that little hook shot, just throw that in there. He has that in there, plus the rebounding. He could be a solid 3, but they definitely need a wing guy next to Donovan Mitchell to make that next step. They have Conley there, so yeah, like Aaron said, eats up a lot of their cap. I think next year they have to make some type of move. Bogdanovich was a good pickup. He was a closer in some circumstances for them throughout the regular season. So with getting that wrist injury definitely hindered them. It would have played a big factor against Denver, who had some solid wings themselves last year. So they're good. They're going to be good defensively. Quinn Snyder's an excellent head coach, but I just don't see them making a lot of noise like Caleb and Aaron said in the Western Conference. But Gobert, I feel like he could still be able to take his game to the next level. Obviously on switches, he's a liability. If he's guarding a guard, it's a wrap. But he's still, 2-time defensive player of the year. Offensively, man, he should be able to put up 20 points. I mean, easy. I mean, like I said, five lobs, bro. Like that's 10 points. Free throw line a couple times. Get some offensive putbacks. That's 20 easy. Donovan will give you 25. Donovan's probably going to have to average 27, 28. And then Bogdanovich is going to have to stay in that 18 to 20 range if they really want to make some noise. But I just don't see it.
I'm trying to figure the Utah Jazz out. I really am. I'm happy Donovan got his money.
Yeah.
I'm really happy about Donovan getting his money. Rudy Gobert, I just am not a fan of a big man that does not know how to play offensively. I'm just defense, okay. You're there for defense, but Donovan needs you to score some nights. Some nights I need you to get
Mm-hmm.
25 because I'm
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah.
Guards get worn out, and then he has to play defense on the other end. He has to guards, and then go get 27, 28 a night. I need more from Rudy Gobert. I'm just gonna say that I need more from Rudy Gobert. I think a lot of people feel that way. I honestly think Donovan feels that way because
I'm
I
sure
thought
it
I thought they were
does.
going to split up after everything that
yeah,
happened. They
yeah,
had some chemistry
Oh yeah.
problems.
yeah. I think Donovan feels that way. And if I could get Rudy Gobert to give me, what do you guys think is a good number offensively for Rudy Gobert to give you? What do you guys
Like
think?
points per game.
Yes. What do you guys think?
And he should be putting up 20 points, 20 and like
7, 16.
20 and 16, bro. I mean,
Yeah.
because like, what does he average now? Like 16 and 4, something like that. What's his average? Somebody could check that out.
Last season was 15.
15 and how many boards?
10. No, 13.
So 15 and 13. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's good, but if he should, a couple, like I said, a couple offensive rebounds, 20 and 17, 20 and 16 as a third option. Like obviously not being the guy like, yo, you could dump the ball down to him and like, yo, go get us a bucket. But if he brings that type of like, you know, that energy on the offensive glass and just, impose his will. A lot of these centers, they're not, they don't have a dog mentality. It's only a couple of centers out here that have like a true dog mentality. So if he imposes his will on the court, be dominant. I remember Shaq said something similar when in that first round. I think he had a really good game against the Nuggets, and he was saying like, yo, if he could do that every single night, he was showing the clips and Shaq's pictures. He was like, if he could do that every single night, they could be a problem. You just don't see that consistency from him. So hopefully, he looked at the tape and looked at some film and see what he could bring to the table next season to improve that team.
Yeah, I think he can do more. I mean, I think he can do a little bit more on offense. I mean, he's kind of limited though by the usage rate. Like they're never going to feature him in the offense. I think just because of his skill set, it doesn't allow for him to be a guy that gets all these touches every night. I mean, you have Bogdanovich, you have Jordan Clarkson, you have Donovan Mitchell, you have Conley. So I think they're going to take up a lot of those possessions. So, I mean, I think he could average a couple more points a game for sure, 2 or 3. But he's limited. Like Amber, you alluded to it before. Like he just doesn't have that much to offer on offense besides lobs and maybe some inside shots like a hook shot. I don't think there's much more that he can do. I think he's kind of hit his ceiling as far as like what he can do. The whole package, like elite offensively, okay, or elite defensively, okay offensively, and I think that's about all we're going to see from him. I don't think there's ever going to be a shot for him, like a jump shot or anything like that. So this is who he is, and I think a lot of us would agree that that's not a guy that I want to pay $200 million for over 5 years or whatnot. So he's going to look for his money. The Jazz might scoff at it, and he might be gone. So we'll have to see how that goes. But, yeah, this is who he is. I guess it's just not good enough for what they're trying to do.
Yeah, you could always get a guy like him. Like you look at McGee, Dwight now. Those guys are expendable for sure.
That's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to be too harsh on him, on Rudy Gobert. I just don't. I wouldn't max him out because he's going to be on all defensive teams. I would not max him out per se, but I will say that he and Mr. Mitchell, they could probably do more. I would like to see them do more together as a tandem. But in the West, it's just so tough, man. It's tough in the West, and how successful can Utah be? Like I said, I'm up in the air about Utah. I really am, but I want to see them do well because I love Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. And Gobert's already getting to be in his late 20s. So if
Yeah.
they re-signed him, he's probably 28 by the time he starts that next contract. He's in his 30s in the middle of that contract, and it's like, how's Gobert going to age? I don't think he's going to age very well. A 7-footer doesn't have a lot of quickness. He depends on. He doesn't depend on athleticism that much, but I don't know. Like, he's going to get worse as time goes on, and I don't want to pay him 35 to 40 million a year in his 30s. Like, that's just not a smart move on their part for anybody. So yeah, it's tough for sure.
Definitely.
Okay, guys. That wraps up the Northwest Division. That wraps up one division in the Western Conference. Now, our next divisions will be to be announced, and our next time will be on live is to be announced. But that is it for today's show. We'll check out the ticker at the bottom. I'll pay some more bills. No, Perry will appreciate this. Check out our shop, teespring.com/store/unwrapped. Go on there and get some unwrapped gear. I got my little pouch in. I'm waiting for my joggers to come in this week. I already got 2 unwrapped shirts. I'm probably gonna buy some stuff from mom. If we get some stuff for dogs, I'll probably dress my dog up and throw him on my live show and promote the brand with the dog. Perry, we need some stuff for dogs because my dog sits down next to me literally and watches me do my live show. I think it's the cutest thing ever. So you guys go check out that store. Go get some gear. A lot of sports going on right now. MyBookie.ag. Use the code USN100 to double your first deposit. Also, sore aching muscles, rxhemp.com. Use the code rxhemp/USN to get 10% off of your order. Guys, I appreciate you. I really do. We'll be back sometime in the next day or two because we have to do 2 more divisions. The preseason is getting ready to start next week. Well,
This
technically
week.
this week,
Yeah,
yeah.
This
this
week,
week.
yeah, it's
Technically,
so fast. Oh my gosh, like
It's
it's
crazy.
like boom, boom, like really quick. So we'll be talking about that. There will be a lot of NBA content for you guys as well. So I'm going to go down the line again. They're going to, promote themselves. I'm going to start with Aaron. Go ahead and promote yourself, Aaron.
Well, Amber, thanks for having us on, and this is a great time with you guys. Really enjoyed chopping it up. You can find me A_A_RON on Twitter, 25 on Twitter. It's going to be the same on Instagram, just 2525. So 2 more numbers on top of that if you want to find me. And then BC Basketball too. That's where you're going to find my podcast, Business Casual Basketball, live 5:30 p.m. on Thursday nights. If you want to check us out, love to have you. And, we get into the business. We get into all kinds of stuff over there. So always a great time and appreciate the opportunity. Glad to be here.
Either
Most
CJ or
definitely, I'll go
okay,
next.
okay.
Hey, glad I appreciate the opportunity. I'm glad to talk basketball with all y'all tonight. It was super fun. You can find me on Twitter at Caleb Conant 2. You can find me on Instagram at 1Caleb Conant. Click the link in my bio, and there's a bunch more stuff right there. So I appreciate y'all tonight. Super fun. Look forward to seeing y'all again.
Yeah, appreciate you guys for having me for sure. You guys can catch me on Instagram at the Guard Up Pod, streaming on all platforms, and also on Twitter, CJ_James9, talking NFL, NBA as well. So thanks again for the USN fam for having me for this episode.
All right, guys, I'm your host. My co-host, he has to go to work early in the morning, so Andrew had to head out, and then we lost Nick early in the show, and then of course Jerome has work and he has to eat dinner. So those guys had to head out early. But if you go back and watch the replay, you'll see all their Instagram and Twitter and all their social media handles. I am simply me_AV on Twitter. Of course, I'm a part of the Unwrapped Sports Network, like these gentlemen are right here. I have the Step Back Sisterhood podcast. It's on Blue Wire. It's on Apple. It's on Spotify. Live show on Twitter, ladies first, live at 7 p.m. Central. And then I have Thunder Coast to Coast. Like I said before, the Thunder have made a lot of transactions. I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce these names, starting with the head coach. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back sometime in the next 2 or 3 days. You guys stay tuned. We're going to cover 2 more divisions out of the East and the West, and then we're going to cover the last 2 divisions. Then we're going to talk about a little bit more after we cover the last 2 divisions. We're going to do, I think we should do like most improved, like preseason most improved and all that. I think we should do all of that. if you guys are up for that. I think that'll be good. But thanks a lot. Coming up next on Unwrapped Sports Network, they are going to do the pregame show, well, postgame show, excuse me, for the Chiefs and the Broncos. So if you're football fans, they're going to do a postgame show for the Chiefs and the Broncos. So we are signing off, and we appreciate all the love and the support, and we'll see you guys later.
Peace.
So, guys.